It's been more than 50 years since trans and queer people rebelled at New York's Stonewall Inn.
Okay. All right. Are we live? There we go. Okay. Welcome back, folks, and good evening. Looks like that's Louis Grant as folks begin filtering in. So, got a chance to watch I guess you'd say, good evening, Shay. Got a chance to watch the last hour of the prime time investigation of what took place on January 6th. Did anybody else in the audience watch it? I understand my audience is MAGA. Shay, I know you may have seen it. Did you watch any of the live primetime broadcast that just ended? Okay, fair enough. Nutty Banana. Okay, good evening, Mama D. Nutty. I love these names. Nutty Banana and Shay. What did you think of what was on? What did you think of it? Do you think the evidence came out to show a little bit more than, let's say, what the Trump administration was claiming, or do you think it was just a bunch of garbage? And a hoax, a witch hunt. What do you know about who called in the National Guard? Tic Tac. In regards to the National Guard, I only seen the last hour of this, and I didn't hear anything there. I've heard folks suggest that it was Nancy Pelosi's job. I've heard folks suggest that it was the mayor of Washington, D.C.'s job. I have not heard anyone on the right suggest that Trump could have done anything. And that's where, and now, Shay, you're saying Pence called the National Guard, not Trump. I've heard so many stories on the National Guard. I will just say this. Remember when, and Johnny Stash, I see you're saying it was Nancy Pelosi's job. Remember when Trump did what they referred to as a photo op, where he had protesters moved out of the way so that he could cross the street and hold up a Bible and whatever the case may be. Whatever you want to call what he did, fill in the blanks. I just want to point out, to get those protesters out of the way, Trump used the National Guard. So I just wanted to use that as a counterpoint for those who suggest that Trump has no access to calling anyone to power in Washington, D.C. Meaty Rock, you're saying that's false. Then who did he use to get the protesters out of the way? He didn't use the mayor of D.C. to do that. He didn't use Nancy Pelosi to get those protesters out of the way. How did he get them out the way? I just want to ask that question. Because he is the president. That was proven false, says Chevy Exhaust. How did he get them out the way? Who removed those protesters for him? He didn't just walk out there on his own. So it is 100% false as me. I don't know how it happened, but I'm not hearing anybody say, why prime time? Oh yeah, to distract what's going on, says Mama D63. I absolutely believe that there was an agenda to holding this in prime time. Is it a distraction? If it is, it would have to be the lamest distraction in U.S. history. We all got to go to the gas pump tomorrow. We all got to pay for goods and services. A distraction from what? I mean, literally a distraction from what? You're not going to forget how much gas cost in your town because they had a 2-hour primetime broadcast. It would be the lamest attempt at a distraction that I've ever heard of. So when you say it's a distraction, I'd have to wonder, what are you suggesting it's a distraction from? Let's see here in the comments. But it's working, says I'm a smartass. This is not going to distract you from hating to go fill up your tank because the gas prices cost too much. It's not going to distract you from that. It's not going to distract the red wave from potentially taking place in November. Now, rolling back Roe versus Wade might distract folks. Having mass casualty event after mass casualty event every single day, which is what is starting to seem like we're heading towards. I just read an article a few minutes ago that somebody showed up at an Alabama school, a grown man trying to get in. They sent security out, who was armed, by the way. The grown man tried to take the security guard's pistol, and they had more security there that killed the guy. Now, that's a secure school. Hooray. But there almost was another mass casualty event just today in regards to schools. So that may be a distraction from Hunter Biden's laptop or whatever the hell you want to talk about. But what's going on at the Capitol building, this has been going on before Biden got elected. So it's not a distraction. This investigation has been happening the whole time. I hope this blocks Trump from running for president. Trump should be in jail, says Dre 1865. Well, the investigation is continuing, so I can't speak on whether he deserves to be incarcerated. But I do want to hear. I do want to get to the bottom of it. I don't just want to dismiss it and roll it under, sweep it under the carpet like some folks do. If Trump is innocent, if Trump had nothing to do with it, then let the details come out. I'm not in the camp where, hey, Trump didn't have nothing to do with it. I don't want to hear what you got to say. Let's move on. No, I want to hear what has to be said. If it doesn't convict Trump, it doesn't convict Trump. But the other side should get a chance to speak. And I understand a lot of my MAGA audience, a lot of my Trump supporters, you don't even want to hear what they have to say. And I don't like that. I don't think that's fair. Same thing with the election. If Trump is claiming the election was stolen, I wanted to hear what he had to say. I don't believe you should just roll it up and sweep it under the rug. Let the man speak. He's had months to speak. I watched 2000 Mules and all of that. When folks start suggesting that you sweep things under the rug and move on, that's when it starts looking like there's cover-ups. And that can come on both sides. It is an amazing document. Timoteo, welcome back. Chalk up for another failed investigation. The NBA, Brewer Coleman. This one is not a complete failure. Now, will it prove that Trump was culpable in this? Maybe, maybe not. But it certainly proves that this was not a love fest. It certainly proves that some Capitol police officers were beaten and injured there. Remember, if listening to the right, my beloved audience, a lot of you guys don't believe anything bad happened. They were, what was it, a peaceful protest? A tour of the Capitol building of sorts. There's plenty of video footage to show that that's not the case. It was a violent protest. Now, what level of violence? I mean, it's no different than when the Black Lives Matter protest. Oh, it was peaceful. Now, if you see a Best Buy set on fire or a CVS getting robbed, no, it's not peaceful. What happened at the Capitol building that day was not peaceful. So I think that the evidence in regards to that is overwhelming. If you're still in the camp or if you still have the belief that the protests at the Capitol building, particularly those who went inside, if you believe that that was peaceful, yeah, then you just don't want to believe the truth. Nothing is going to sway someone that has that mindset. There is plenty of video footage to show otherwise today. They showed up in bulletproof vests, and that does appear what's going on here. I'm a smartass. Good evening. What's going on?
Oh, not much. It's just listening to you, and I sit there. With the thing going on prime time tonight. The three most recent things that we've had happen is what is it in Wisconsin? Next Supreme Court judge was murdered. Hogtied
Yes.
and whatnot, murdered. Then we have we're talking about, everybody should be held accountable. Well, we just had, what is it, Paul Pelosi, Nancy Pelosi's wife or husband, that got
A
arrested
DUI?
for the DUI accident. And then Pelosi
Okay.
reached out to her nephew, Newsom, and said, hey, you need to tell the Highway Patrol to drop all charges. So the Highway Patrol dropped all charges. So now Paul Pelosi is not going to be held accountable for his DUI accident. And then we had the incident, what was it, today or yesterday? The man that attempted, there was an attempt on Kavanaugh's life. There
Yeah.
was a man
The
that went
Brett
to Kavanaugh's house.
Okay. The Brett Kavanaugh thing, I think that is absolutely news, and obviously the retaliation, assassination up in Wisconsin. Nancy Pelosi using her influence to get a DUI dropped. I don't. If that's what happened, I'm not. I know he got a DUI charge. As far as whether it was dropped or not, I don't know what significance that has to mass casualty events and schools being shot up and judges being killed. I think that that's a minor issue to even bring that up. I don't know where that comes in this.
It's just it's holding people accountable. It's an accountability thing. I mean, it's a DUI charge is very minuscule. I will agree with you on that. Very minuscule. But in the broader scheme of things, if just because Pelosi's a Democrat, if the Democrats can get things like a DUI brushed under the rug, what other things are they capable? For credibility with what they're trying to do with Trump, with putting the January 6th thing on prime time to hold him accountable for for allegedly inciting, this insurrection, where we have, at the same time we have recorded footage of Maxine Waters, telling the public to go out and make their voices heard, and then shortly after we have riots where buildings are getting burned down, businesses are getting burned, and everything else. So
Do you
why is
in regards to Maxine Waters saying get up in folks' face and what you're talking about, and then soon after what Maxine Waters said, there were some violent uprisings. Do you hold Maxine Waters accountable for causing that?
she incited it? With again, you and
So in other words, so if you believe Maxine Waters incited that, how could you not believe Trump incited what took place on January 6th?
well, that's again, it's blurred. Because the left say that Maxine Waters didn't incite those
No, I'm talking
riots.
about you. No, hang on. I'm talking about you. You said you
Me?
believe Maxine Waters incited that. So I'm asking you, if you believe Maxine Waters incited it, why don't you believe Trump incited it as well?
There's a very good possibility that Trump could have, but with the evidence that I've seen so far with following it, doors were held open, and there was, the what is it, Ray Epps? I don't know. I haven't fully caught, where Ray Epps ties into what party affiliation and side he's on, but there's recorded video that showed up the day before of him, walking around telling everybody, "Hey, we need to take the place tomorrow." And then right before the insurrection happened, Ray Epps was there rallying the troops to go charge in. So how
So
much of it?
let me ask you this question: do you believe Antifa or Black Lives Matter was present there that day?
I've told you we've had this conversation where I'm tired. It's too coincidental for things to happen the way they are. Because if I'm not mistaken, January 6th was the House count. Was
Okay.
the final count to make or to do Biden as the president. So it was the distraction.
Okay.
So
D1 in the comments is asking me, did you watch the hearings that were just on?
I can't. It's anything involving that. It makes me sick. It gives me
Okay.
migraine.
Fair enough. So let me ask you this question then. I understand you don't necessarily think Trump did anything wrong. That's fine. You're entitled to your opinion. But just for sake of argument, for the sake of this debate here, let's say Trump actually did commit something criminal that day. The question is, who could tell you that and get you to actually believe it?
Who could tell me that?
Yeah, if he actually did something wrong, who would be able to tell you that and get you to actually believe it?
Show me hard circumstantial evidence without a
Well,
shadow.
but who and that's the point is who could give you that evidence? Who could present that to you other than by video footage? Who could say I heard him say this or I know he did? Who could tell you that and get you? I mean, because otherwise you're saying the only thing I'll believe is actual video footage. I won't believe any witness. Give me somebody that could tell you that, and you will say, okay, yes, I trust that person.
Candace Owens, Ron DeSantis. Um, who else is there? You seriously, because it's those are
What
the
about
people.
the FBI? Do you trust the FBI?
Don't trust him for as far as I can throw him.
Do you trust the Capitol Police?
Capitol Police are gonna follow orders that they were told. So whoever in charge of the Capitol Police and dropping orders down is, what they're gonna is they're gonna follow their orders.
Okay.
Well, whoever's in
Okay.
charge of Capitol Police, that's what that is.
Okay. So in other words, and the reason I'm asking you this is kind of what I figured. So in other words, nobody that was there that day could really tell you this and get you to believe them.
But who was there that's gonna come out and say I charged the Capitol building because Trump told me to? Nobody has come out
Right,
to
and
say
that's
that.
what I'm saying is because you have that type of suspicion where the Capitol Police are going to follow orders, FBI is going to follow orders. You can't trust any of the liberals. In other words, there's no one that could tell you the truth and get you. You have a truth set up, or better yet,
you question what you've been told, and there's no way to correct that because you're not going to believe anybody.
Well, it's not that I wouldn't believe him, but it's without a shadow of a doubt. Just like with due process, you're found guilty beyond a shadow of a doubt. With everything that's gone on for almost, what is it, 18 months? We're going on what, 18 months now since this
Well,
has
but if you,
happened.
you don't have a reason to believe Antifa or Black Lives Matter was present there without a shadow of a doubt, yet you still lean in that direction. You don't have a reason to believe Trump won by a landslide beyond a shadow of a doubt, yet you still
There's
believe it.
Right. Well, there was something that came up. There was something I was reading an article or something like that, and the article I read, now whether or not it was satire or just something to kind of stir the pot, the article I read said that there's 133 million registered voters in the United States, but yet 146 million people turned out. So how do we get a plus 13 million when there's only 133 million registered voters? Like
Well,
it was
who
it
gave you okay? If you don't trust the government and particularly the FBI, why would you trust the number 133 million? That's where that number is coming from. Is the government?
right.
If you don't trust them, why are you taking that number into account?
Well, it's one of those things just to cast doubt. There are so many. It's I have honestly as a grown adult, I have honestly come to the conclusion, especially with listening to with listening to you on TikTok and having conversations with you and everything, because you and I, we can converse pretty good back and forth, with things. And with all of that, this is my God honest truth of what I feel is going on. It's a
Okay.
divide on purpose. These things are being done on purpose because you've got your talking points of we have this, but I have my talking points of there's this, and it casts doubt on both sides, and it leaves us confused and not sure of what's really going on.
But
And
okay, but let me ask you this question, and I talk to my MAGA audience all the time. We all support police, even I myself as a liberal, I support police. Why is there so much distrust for the Capitol Police, as you just suggested, where they're going to follow orders? Which, in other words, you're suggesting if they are told to lie, they're going to follow orders and lie. So when they give accounts and they say that, well, I feared for my life and I thought my life was in danger, you're suggesting that they're capable of lying about that, or they're willing to get up there and lie about that. So how can you necessarily say you have support for police when you're admitting they cannot be trusted and they lie?
well, it's I'm not. I mean, I have my own personal. I have my daughter right here within earshot, but long story short, I have my own personal issues with LEOs. There were some
Okay.
things that just transpired in my life that weren't supposed to go the way they were supposed to, and find out later that the witness was badgered. There was no concrete evidence, but I still got dinged. So my faith in law enforcement right now is not the highest. So that kind of rolls over into why I don't trust the Capitol Police.
Okay, fair. Okay, well, I do want to move it on. Got some more folks in here, but I would strongly suggest. Now, I know you said you did not watch the hearings that just took place. Um, I mean, I understand you're not going to believe a lot of folks in regards to what took place there that day, but I still would strongly suggest if you could catch it on YouTube or stream it online somewhere, watch as much of it as you can stomach because some of that opens your eyes. You're watching police officers give testimony. You're watching Republicans give testimony, and the notion that they're just all lying and making this stuff up, even up to including Donald Trump's own daughter, that suggested that Attorney Jim Bart told her that there was no widespread evidence of election fraud. And Ivanka Trump stated, I actually believed, I trust this guy. I mean, so yeah, I would just strongly suggest if you get a chance, watch it. And you're welcome back on the program anytime. I'd love to talk to you about it if you watch. The same thing when people told me to watch 2000 Mules. I watched it. In fact, I watched it several times and I came back and talked about it. Give it a watch. That's all I'm asking. If there's any
I'll
chance
give
in
it,
you, give it a watch.
I'll give it a watch tonight.
All right, fair enough. And I look forward to hearing back from you.
All right, you have a good night.
You too. You too.
And by the way, folks, I'm not saying that anything that was on that primetime broadcast. I'm not suggesting it's the gospel truth. I'm just simply saying watch it and form an opinion. Do not form an opinion without watching it. That would be just like you telling me to watch 2000 Mules or some of these other different programs. No, I don't believe it. Then, yeah, of course you're not, just watch it. It's only, it's just a couple hours. It's not going to kill you to watch it. You don't have to believe it. Just listen to the testimony and at least form an opinion based on some actual presentation. If you can form an opinion that everybody is not guilty, it's a love fest and nothing happened, and you haven't watched any evidence, then you were biased from the beginning. That would be my point, is you're biased from the beginning. Let's go over to Miss Goddess.
We learned the Proud Boys led the breach of the Capitol. Yeah, we did watch. We did learn that. Okay, Miss Goddess, you are on mute. Unmute your device. Who
Hello there.
owns the Capitol building? The people
Okay,
do. The
I'm
people
off
own the
of
Capitol
mute.
building. That doesn't mean you can destroy it. Good evening, Miss Goddess. What's on your mind?
Hey, first,
Hey, what's up?
okay, I'm gonna start off like this. Okay, I'm going to salute Liz Cheney for being
Okay.
the last Republican that took under oath and to do what's right. Okay, she's part of the committee. I watched the committee
Well,
tonight.
I will say this: there's a lot of folks who are suggesting that they're stating that Nancy Pelosi is in control of it, and she's in control of Congress, so obviously she's in control of the hearing. But what do you think of the fact that there was very few Republicans on the committee?
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. Like this, no, it took a lot of courage for her to do what she did
Yeah,
because a
and
lot of
and that's and in regards to what you're saying, Texas, what did I say? Texas Sunny Victoria is saying that Liz Cheney better polish her resume. So when you said it took a lot of courage, yeah, you're right about that. Go ahead.
okay, so like I watched it and it is amazing. Okay, like it's just like you have to watch it. Just the way you can like get your own understanding of it. Okay, it was okay. So they're saying, oh, if that was a protest. Okay, so if a protest can bring thousands of people from all across the country to go to the Capitol, right? I mean, you can visit the Capitol, but
What do
to
you
break
what do you think of
into
Trump?
it,
What do you think of okay, in regards to the protest, what do you think of Trump suggesting for folks to come out there and saying in a tweet, it will be wild? What do you
right?
believe he meant when he was telling the protesters to show up and it would be wild?
Okay, so like the people that went there, they already knew that it was going to be wild. It was going to because they went there for a reason. They had like some type of dark web that they was like going on. That's how they all knew to go there. And then, in my opinion, Trump just egged them on. Trump like basically told them to do what they did. Those people was prepared. They was prepared. They came there to fight. They came there
Okay,
to take back what was theirs.
what about the notion that if they came to fight, this is what I'm hearing from a lot of my viewers often. If they came to fight, why didn't they have guns? If it was an attempt to overthrow the Capitol, why did they not have guns? How would you respond to that?
Let's make sense out of sense. Okay. All right. They didn't need guns. They had bear spray. They took flagpoles. They took I saw fire extinguishers being thrown. You could kill a person by choking them to death. You could take scissors to kill somebody. I mean, they was physically violent. They fought them cops. I seen when that one cop was knocked out, cold blooded. Those people was mad. They broke through every entrance of that Capitol to get in there. You don't need a gun to do that.
So in other
They
words, you
use
do believe
weapons.
Trump is. So in other words, you do believe Trump is culpable for what happened.
Yes, he is, because if Trump did not lead those people to go there and tell the people to fight like hell to take back what's theirs, and then he was basically telling them to go after Pence. So I mean, like those people, they look, they didn't waste their time to travel all around the country to meet up, and they still think to this day that the election was stolen. Like you can't convince them otherwise differently. Like they're gonna think how they think. They're gonna think how they think, and they still think it was a protest. Then it was blaming, oh, it was a Tifa, oh, it's BLM. I think I seen in the footage that they showed, I saw maybe one Asian person and maybe one black man, and that was
Well,
it.
there were some minorities there. It wasn't
It
it
was
wasn't
some
any
minorities,
significant.
but it
Yeah, it
was
wasn't. Yeah, it wasn't anything significant. But
it
yeah,
was
there
so
were some
few
minorities there.
that you could count them.
Yeah,
That you could
yeah,
count them. They stuck
yeah.
out. They look. They was like oh, one there, oh, one there. I mean, come on, let's be real. And
Okay.
I'm just hoping through all the evidence that they have at this hearing, I'm just hoping Trump needs to go where he deserved to be at, and that's in jail. And also, as far as like the Republicans, I just feel as though, my opinion, it needs to be dismantled because our democracy is still in peril, and they're
Okay.
showing it right now. All the actions, they're showing it. They're telling
Okay.
it.
All right.
Their
I'm gonna let
actions.
me. Fair enough. I do got to move it on, but I will give you the last word, and I will say this: the two things you're suggesting, Trump going to jail and dismantling of the Republican Party, those two things have no chance of happening. I will
No.
tell you this: if the evidence began to look overwhelming against Trump, my guess is somebody would talk to him behind the scenes and tell him you have no we won't even pursue any type of incarceration if you just promise not to run again. That's all they really want. If Trump would announce that he was not going to run for president, this would go away. The same thing when they were talking about Hillary Clinton and how corrupt she was. The minute she got out of the way of running for office, it all went away. And if President Biden announces that he's not running in 2024, the entire Hunter Biden spiel will go away too. It's just a ploy to get you out of the way. But it sounds good while it's happening. But none of folks at this level, I cannot stress this to my folks who are watching. Folks at this level do not go to jail. So if you're hoping that Hillary Clinton or Trump or Hunter Biden, none of these folks are going to do a day in jail. It's not going to happen. I'll give you the last
Okay,
word.
I'm gonna say this. It's no comparison to Hillary Clinton. It's no comparison to Biden's son because there's no proof. All the proof is in the pudding. You can see what happened. Okay, so now it has to be some action more than saying don't run for 2024. Trump got a big mouth. He can't help himself. He stirred his pot more so for racism. I think the best punishment for him is to go to jail where he belongs. And
Okay.
and and he got to be made an example of. You is not above the law because if they get away with it now, they're gonna do it again. Our democracy is at peril, and I feel as though put him where he belongs. Clink clink. Good day. Thanks for
All
having
right,
me.
Miss Goddess. All right, Miss Goddess.
Good
You
day.
you throwing away the key, huh? All right, you have a good night.
Later. Okay. All right. Now, obviously, Miss Goddess wants an insane amount of justice for Trump. And if he's guilty, I can totally understand it. But at the end of the day, guilty or not, folks at this level do not do time. They just don't. You know how many favors Trump, President Biden, Hillary Clinton can pick up the phone and call? It's not gonna happen, folks. It's not, and let's just be clear in regards to how divided America is right now. Hell, even as a liberal, I don't think it's safe to lock up President Trump right now. I don't think that would be a good thing for this country to do at all. There's too many folks, I'm talking to many of them now, who don't think that the guy did a damn thing wrong. You throw this guy in jail, you see what they were willing to do on January 6th. That is not safe. So I would, just like I was telling Ms. Goddess, I would try to find somebody, maybe a cooler head to prevail, hopefully his daughter or somebody, that could tell him, listen, the DA or whoever the hell it is at the federal level, the federal prosecutor is willing to offer you a deal if you just suggest you're getting out of politics. We won't lock you up. We won't just simply announce that you're getting out of politics. You can call it fake news. You can say it's skewed. You can say you don't want to lock this guy up. That's all I'm saying. This is not the guy to lock up. Period. Okay, on to the next caller. And the too old thing. I see somebody say he's too old. Hey, they lock up old.
There are mobsters that die in jail. So there's no such thing as being too old. Sheep Smasher. I love that name. Good evening.
What's up, buddy? How are you?
Nothing at all. You the man. You the man. What's going on?
So, I actually completely 100% agree with the statement that you just made. We can't lock this guy up.
No.
We can't lock this guy up.
Right.
These folks willing to storm the Capitol, you don't think they'll go up there and murder a whole bunch of prison guards to get the bust this guy out? Hell yeah, they would.
Yeah. And he would definitely be one on TV like, I'm in here, this is some bullshit. He'd be like a rapper making an album out of prison whispering on the phone like, this is some bullshit. And there are folks out there that support him. Yeah, I think it would be very unsafe to lock him up.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. There's no doubt about that. But I also was listening to you earlier. So they did find guns on these folks on January 6th.
I missed it. Did that come out tonight?
No, that's been out. They just don't talk about it that much because
come on now. No.
Hey, I'm trying to tell you now.
No.
Hey.
You can't say that. Let me tell you why. The liberals are the ones that are in control of this. Nancy Pelosi's in control of this. If they found firearms on these people, what do you mean they don't say that? If you want to show that there was some nefarious activity coming out, that's the last thing you want to hide, because that's what the right is saying right now, is that how can it be an attempt to take over the Capitol building if there were no guns present? If you found guns, you got to really bring that to the light. Go ahead.
Go to the Department of Justice's website and look at the charging document they gave to the Proud Boys.
You just got millions of folks to tune in during prime time hours or at the same time. Why do I got to go to a website?
Now I'm telling you,
TV.
you asked how long ago it came out, and I'm telling you, it's been out for a while. It's just not being talked about a lot.
That's terrible. If that's
now I'm trying to tell you, go look it up. Go to the Department of Justice website and look it up. How these folks had guns and shit stashed at hotels. Oh, it was a whole conspiracy.
Yeah. Okay, well, that did come out. That came out tonight about guns being stashed. Okay, that did come out. All right, fair enough. That did come out. But as far as were there guns on the citizens on the grounds there?
They found a few. It wasn't that many, but they found a few. Okay. Look, the whole idea was to stop the certification process. Navarro talked about it. He told on his damn self on MSNBC. That's why they arrested his ass.
Well, that's how a lot of them got arrested, because they took pictures and bragged about what they were doing. I mean, it wasn't very smart, but that's kind of how a lot of them ended up getting arrested. But do you believe Trump himself is criminally culpable for what happened?
Oh, absolutely. This was a whole conspiracy. This shit was planned. I mean, you had these folks giving tours to these crazy ass people before they ran up in there. Lauren Boebert and them. Oh, this was a whole conspiracy, dog.
Okay.
And see, now, what does have me perplexed, though, is that I don't know how Donald Trump got elected and then got into the White House and corrupted all these politicians that's been there for years.
Well,
that's what I don't understand.
Well, my guess is the politicians you claim that Donald Trump corrupted were already corrupt when he came. Now, I believe that Trump came in there and obviously made it clear that I'm the shit, and there's no denying that he is the shit. And they figured this is a guy to fall on the gravy train of, just like Lindsey Graham and some of those, because Trump is, in regards to the Republican Party, he's the shit. So I don't believe it's necessarily that he corrupted them. They were power hungry, and just like I'll give you a perfect example. We're talking about January 6th. Look at the statements. Take the liberals out of the picture. Take the Capitol Police and the FBI completely out of the picture. Look at the statements that came from Republican senators and Republican congressmen on January 6th. They were all in condemnation of Trump. No one, not a single politician was defending Trump on January 6th. The moment they realized that this was not enough to take that man out of power or even hurt his image to any significant degree, they all came back home. So they're power hungry. They were ready to throw Trump under the bus until they found out he's still driving a bus. But yeah, so I don't think it's that Trump corrupted them. The folks are already that way.
Right. No, I mean, that's a very good point. And that's part of it too. But for me, I just think if I'm going to be in a job that long, I'm not going to let some dirtbag like Donald Trump come in there and convince me to try to overthrow the freaking government. You know what I mean?
Well, I often watch some of the old World War II documentaries, and I wonder how can one man convince people to do that? If folks think they can get away with something, I've seen like college tests where they convinced college students to shock people even beyond their pain threshold. If you think you can get away with something like mob mentality, Black Lives Matter is a perfect example. I'm sure there are people that are at those riots doing things that they normally wouldn't do because you think you can get away with it. So it's not necessarily that might be how they normally act, but when you're in a crowd of thousands and there is no sort of accountability, it might lead you to do things you would not have ordinarily done.
And yeah, and I understand that too. But I'm just saying, I just think the state of our union, I think we're in a lot of trouble. I really do. Because I'll be the first here to tell you, I don't trust no Trumper, period. As soon as somebody tell me that they voted for Donald Trump, I automatically ain't got nothing to say to them. I just don't.
What if it's an evangelical, a person who grew up religious, truly saved, and they just believe in protecting the unborn, the life of the unborn, and they voted for Trump because he put in three Supreme Court justices, and they're going to roll back Roe v. Wade. Is that not a legitimate reason to vote for him?
Not to me, especially after what we witnessed on January the 6th. This guy tried to overthrow our entire freaking government, and that would have affected all of us.
So if you believe in protecting the sanctity of life, should you vote for a Democrat as opposed to Trump? If Trump is running against Biden and you want to protect the sanctity of life, or you believe in protecting the Second Amendment to the point of shall not be infringed upon, you're going to tell me you shouldn't vote for Trump and you should vote for Biden?
What I'm saying is none of that matters if we got a dictator.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Okay. Yeah, I get your point.
Yeah.
Well, they don't believe he's a dictator, though. They don't believe that. So I understand where you're going with it, but if you don't believe he's a dictator, then that's not going to be how you base your decision.
And that's what I'm saying. And what I'm saying is it's more of us than them. Why are we letting this minority dictate how we going to live just because they go to a freaking school board meeting and show their ass because they don't want to wear a freaking mask? Why shouldn't all of our kids have to put on the mask to be safe? It seems like they're always the ones being loud, and we shouldn't stand for it. That's how come I don't know how. Because when I got on here, you was talking to that guy, and I'm sitting here listening to this guy make every excuse in a book for Donald Trump and the way these Republicans been conducting themselves. So, how could we ever trust them ever?
Well, the vast majority of my audience is MAGA, so I've talked to a lot of MAGA that you can trust. I understand where you're going, and there are folks who are going to believe him no matter what. Hence the phrase, "I can shoot somebody in the middle of Fifth Avenue." But there are other folks who do hold him accountable, and they vote for him based on the actual issues of what he's doing for the country. So they're not all cult followers. But
well,
go ahead.
How come I don't see them? How come I never see those people or never hear them?
Because you're not looking for them. You have your mind made up that they're all cult-like. I got to give you the
No,
last. I do got to move it on. I'll give you the last word. So go ahead.
bro, wait a minute. Okay, so all right. Thank you. Thank you for taking the time with me. So the last point I make is I went on this woman's live a couple months back because I really don't get on here that much, but I was on her live and this woman, and she had like 60,000 viewers in there at the time. And she looked me dead in my face and told me that she believed that was Black Lives Matter up in the Capitol on January 6th. So
Yeah.
I said, if that's the case, then why did Donald Trump tell him that he loved them?
Yeah. And I've said it several times on my broadcast because I hear folks saying Antifa and Black Lives Matter, and my only response to that is no one, not a single person that was actually there that day. Republicans, not liberals, not FBI, not the police, even Republicans are not claiming that the Antifa or Black Lives. Some folks in the audience mentioned one guy, John Sullivan. I mean, if you know the one dude by name, how much influence can one single Antifa member have in that type of a crowd? I mean, the fact that you only can come up with one, if in it, and that's assuming that that guy was even Antifa. But at the end of the day, it was MAGA that believed that the election was stolen from their president, and they were coming to protest and potentially stop it from happening. Antifa and Black Lives Matter, as far as I'm concerned, and I've listened to everybody. As far as I'm concerned, they did not play any role in what took place out there at all. But I got to move it on, man. I appreciate you coming through.
All right, man, appreciate it.
All right. Okay, let me look at the. And by the way, folks, for those who saw what
Video and things like that. What would lead you to believe Antifa or Black Lives Matter was there if you don't believe anything else? America is broken. Oh, Miss Goddess. Yes, but they went to protest. Antifa went to cause trouble and blame it on MAGA. You don't have any proof Antifa was there. I've heard folks talk about John Sullivan. I've heard folks talk about they saw somebody changing clothes. Give me some actual proof, not coincidental shit, that Antifa or Black Lives Matter was present. I have not heard that. I have not heard that.
Go to the big DM. Antifa wasn't even there in numbers. I don't think Antifa was there at all. Okay, the big DM. Good evening.
Good
Welcome back.
evening. I'm back.
Okay.
Just to start out, I think the sheep smasher might need to smash himself. He sounds a little bit like a sheep himself on the left side. So I'll just put that right up.
Okay. All right. Now
Um,
you didn't watch this. You didn't watch any of it, did you?
I actually, I took your advice. I watched a little bit of it. I went and grabbed some food. I didn't watch a whole lot of it. I had a problem with what the Carolyn girl, the first one to open, I believe, when I started watching. I had a little bit of a problem with what she did. She essentially tried to compare herself to war veterans, and I felt like, yeah, that's probably not the angle you want to go. I understand she probably went through some stuff on that day, but I feel like it's again. I'm 10 minutes into this thing again, and it gets tainted like that. And I'm like, man, it's hard to stay into when people are disingenuous, and it goes on both sides.
I will say this. You got to understand that anybody watching the coverage of what took place and watching these hearings, nobody's watching it from an unbiased perspective. If you were watching if you were watching one of the teachers that were at that school that just recently got shot up down in southern Texas, and one of those teachers started talking about she felt like a war veteran, you were watching that from an unbiased perspective. So you might be more willing to listen to what she says without criticism. You're watching the hearings from January 6th from a biased perspective. I mean, you probably tend to believe that what the protesters did was either their First Amendment protected rights in terms of freedom of assembly and freedom of speech, or you're watching it from a belief that Trump, was fighting it to prevent the election from stolen from him. So you're going to be sympathetic to the protesters. So when a Capitol police officer gets up there and says, I feel like I was at war with these guys, it sounds like an overstatement because you got a bias in favor of the people she's complaining about. You get what I'm saying?
I completely agree. And I guess where I take issue with that is I told you before, and I don't know if you remember this, but I'm a security contractor. So what I did basically for the media during the riots in Louisville is I took MSNBC, CBS, ABC, and Fox News in and out of the riots. So that was
Okay.
my job. So I got to see. I wanted to go see this. Same thing in Atlanta. So I got to see this up front in person. And for me to say, I mean, I saw things that they will never report. 75% of what happens on the ground during a riot does not get reported, and they don't want
Give me
anybody
some
to.
examples of what you saw that you don't think it will be reported.
Well, I'll tell you this. They started burning a Fed building in Louisville the night that it kicked off. That I guess Daniel Cameron wasn't gonna the AG in Kentucky wasn't going
Oh,
to
wait a minute, wait a
really.
minute. My fault. Okay, you're talking about a different protest. I thought you were talking about what's happening in
No, no, no,
Washington.
no,
My
no.
fault.
I'm just saying
Okay, all right,
I've had a lot
my
of
mistake.
experience with riots and things, so I know what it's like to stand there and have to protect somebody.
Okay. Well,
I've done it.
fair enough. I will say what I said earlier, and that is in regards to what took place on January 6th. If there are things that are pertinent to the investigation that actually are meaningful tidbits that should come out, the right wing politicians, as opposed to just defending Trump and saying there's nothing to see here, folks, they need to bring that information to the forefront. Right now, what they're simply doing is sitting back, letting the left give its speech and just simply saying everything they're saying is lies. Okay, then what is your point? Well, our point is that they're lying to you. Okay, that's fine. But what do you have to say about it? Nothing. That we're just saying they're lying. That they need to release, if they believe that what happened there was harmless and all of that, they need to release video. If you're talking about, for instance, the cops let them in or the cops cooperated, there is video footage of the cops letting them in one entrance. So I posted that on my channel. But the right wing side of it is there are plenty of right wing senators, plenty of right wing Congress. They could put together something and do a hell of a lot better than just simply criticizing what the left is throwing out there.
I mean, I agree with that, but you also have to look at how right wingers have been treated in the media. You're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. Trump has said plenty of things that weren't racist that got they got misspeak or they got taken out of context. So I think as right wingers, I think the best thing they feel like they can do right now is to shut up and say nothing and let the left hang themselves rather than incriminate themselves or get something twisted in the media. And it's happened time and time again. So I almost don't even blame them for just sitting back and like, let's see what you got. Since you want to say our people did this, then prove it. And that's really how it's supposed to work, you know?
Well, I can tell you for a fact when it comes to court of law, if somebody is accusing you of something in a court of law and you're remaining silent, it's never going to help you. When you're just letting that other person get their point out, state everything, and you're just sitting there quiet, that won't help. Now, if you believe Trump is innocent, it doesn't matter what is said. You're going to believe that. Other than Trump himself coming out and saying, "Yeah, I screwed up. I'm sorry." If you believe Trump is innocent, yeah, there's probably not going to be a lot to convince you, which is what I asked I asked my first caller on the night, and that was if Trump did something criminal, and I understand my audience do not believe Trump did anything wrong. That's fine. But let's just for shits and giggles say he did do something criminal that day. Who could actually tell you and have you actually believe it? Because you don't believe the FBI, you don't believe the media, you don't believe the Capitol Police, you don't believe any of the governing authorities that were there that day. And even when they release video footage, you believe that's either skewed or it's deliberately omitting other footage. So if he actually did do something wrong, who could tell you and have you believe it?
Well, I mean, it's different for me. I feel like Trump did this his whole 4 years he was in office. He knew the boundaries that he could push. So I don't know if you've heard this in football that break but don't or bend but don't break defense. That was Trump. He would bend things, but he wouldn't break them. He knew right. He could. He's one of those kids on the playground where you draw a line in the dirt and there's going to be one kid that puts his toe right up close to it. Well, that's Donald Trump. That's what he did. But that's what he did his whole career, even in New York and everything else. So, you know.
What about the notion that came out tonight that while that was happening to Mike Pence, where they were yelling, about taking his life, and the Secret Service had to get him out of there, and they gave statements to suggest that Trump was like he deserves that. How do you feel about something like that? Do you believe that's true?
I mean, I don't, simply because that just would seem like it would be too sloppy for him to just come out and say. I don't think people give him enough credit about how smart he is. They think, oh, he's a dog. Oh, he's it. Well, he's a politician, man. I mean, they're all dogs. I mean, let's be honest. They all have the same mind frame, and he's no different. Like, in my opinion, he's a Republican version of Bill Clinton. If you really want to get down to it, they're not really that much different from each other. They bend a lot of rules. They liked women. I mean, it is what it is. But I don't know. In my opinion, I would find that hard to believe. I mean, you would have to
Okay,
show
what?
me some
Okay,
really
let me
concrete
follow.
evidence.
Fair enough. Let me follow that up with this. Mike Pence stated that after them folks going through the halls suggested that they wanted to take his life, erecting a gallows, and him being ushered out by the Secret Service. Mike Pence stated that Trump did not call and check on him for days after that. How do you take that?
I mean, I take it like this, and I mean, this is just me personally, and I think Trump's more of a citizen than a politician. I think he's been a politician his whole life, but he's more of a citizen. If somebody told me, if somebody turned their back on me, or I felt like they stabbed me in the back, well, I'm not going to go check on them either. So I think that
Even
just
if they
speaks.
almost got, even if they almost lost their life, you would hold that, you would have that high of a regard, that high of a grudge against them. You would not even check on them, even if they almost lost their life.
But see, I don't think he believes that he almost lost his life. When you're in there and you have the Secret Service and everybody protecting you, and you've got an alley to a tunnel and all these things, like, he knows a lot more than we know. And I had a cousin that worked for the Secret Service. I mean, there's a lot of things, like, it's really really hard to pull another, Reagan assassination attempt. Like, it'd be damn near impossible now. Like, it'd be very, very hard. So I can see that part of it too. But is it kind of messed up because this dude's your running mate? Yeah, but it also, I mean, kind of speaks to him and who he is. Like, oh, you wanted to stab me in the back, or you want to talk poorly about
Okay,
me?
how do you?
You
Okay,
know,
how are you suggesting? I'm gonna have to move it on, but I want you to answer
that's
this one.
fine.
How are you suggesting that Mike Pence, quote unquote, stabbed him in the back? What did Mike Pence do to stab him in the back?
I think it was, I thought, and correct me if I'm wrong, I don't have any evidence of that, but I thought he said something against Trump leading up to January 6th. Like, he didn't agree with something because he knew they didn't win, or yeah, it was after the election. He was trying to separate himself from Trump because he was like, okay, I can see the party's gonna split here. So do I want to die with Trump, or do I want to continue being a politician? I mean, this is my career. I can't remember exactly what he said, but I know he felt like he was going to die with Trump if he stood by Trump after the election. So there was something I
But
remember he tried to
that's
separate.
not stabbing. Okay, if that's not if you believe that your running mate or you believe that your coworker or something is doing something that could be dangerous to their career, you're not obligated to do that. I mean, that's not stabbing the coworker in the back. You could just go to the coworker and say, I got love for you, but I'm not down with what you're doing. He essentially what folks in the audience are saying is what I believe happened, and that is Trump wanted Pence to not certify the election. Pence, according to Chris Christie in his book, Pence actually checked and tried to see if he actually could do that, and was advised that no, you cannot refuse to certify the election. You don't have a constitutional right to do that. So Pence followed the words of his advisors, and that put him on the opposite side of Trump and pissed Trump off. Other than that, Mike Pence, there's no instance of Mike Pence stabbing Trump in the back. That's why I had to ask you that. He never stabbed him. He didn't do anything to him. He was loyal to a fault.
But do you think, from Trump's perspective, that was stabbing him in the back? I'm talking about from Trump's perspective.
Yeah, and that's
Yeah, that's
his
what I'm
perspective
talking
is
about.
wrong.
Yeah.
His perspective is incredibly wrong. You're going to ignore the fact that this guy was your running mate, went around the country saying nothing but great things about you for 4 straight years. And this one incident is enough for you to let the man potentially face a crowd that wants to lynch him and not even call and check on him and see if he's okay. Just that one incident is enough to throw everything else about this guy in the garbage.
But we know that about Trump. Trump's done that. Like we were talking about Lindsey Graham earlier. I think Trump's the only person who actually called him a rhino, like we were talking about, and actually stuck him out there for a little bit. So I mean, it speaks to what he is. And I personally don't have a lot of problems with Trump. I like him, but it also speaks to what he is. He's a competitor like that. Like you're either for me or against me. Even if you
Well,
say
but
one
no,
thing,
but
that's
see,
it.
I get your point. Being a competitor and for and against, but I guess the issue I have is with the demand for one-way loyalty. You better be loyal to me. Me being loyal to you is optional. That's where I have an issue with it. And I believe that a lot of right-wing elite politicians probably do not want him back for that reason. Now, I know the voters want him back for sure. We missed the gas prices and all that. I know a lot of American voters want him back. But I don't believe a lot of the players in Washington on the right side of the aisle want him back because of that. If I mess up even a little bit, this guy will destroy my whole career. I could do like Liz Cheney voted with Trump. Liz Cheney voted with Trump like 96% of the time. So she absolutely was down with his legislation. It helped him make America the way he wanted. And at one event, the election, he threw away every single thing that she would have done for him just because of that one event. Who wants to work for a guy that'll throw you under the bus that quick? So that's what my guess is that a lot of right wingers probably do not want him back. But I could be wrong.
I think that nobody in Washington probably wants him back or wants to have to deal with him. But I think that's the main reason why people wanted him is that he was like, it's my way or the highway, and that's why he got thrown in there because he showed this to the American people before he even got elected. Listen, I'm going to get in there. I'm going to do this. And if y'all don't like it, guess what? Get the fuck out of my way then. I don't care if you're with me or you're
Well, let me.
against me,
Okay,
you
fair,
know.
fair enough. Well, I gotta part ways with you, but I will say this in regards to I'm gonna get in there, do what I want. If you don't like it, get the fuck out of my way.
Yeah.
Understand that you're not a businessman at this point. As a politician, you work for us. We don't work for you. So that's what you need to. That's what happens when you're not a typical politician. Is that you come into the presidency thinking you're a CEO, whereas a CEO, you control everybody. As a politician, it's the opposite. All right, I got to move it on, man.
Can I ask you one question to end it?
Okay, go ahead.
81 million votes, 25% of the population. You know how big that is. What, 20 million votes over Obama? At your
Okay.
gut, does that feel wrong?
In my gut, the notion that somebody like President Biden would get more votes than Obama doesn't make a lot of sense. However, that doesn't mean it's just because something doesn't make a lot of sense that it's guaranteed to be fraudulent for the Democratic Party. At the end of the day, you got to prove it. You can't just throw something that's coincidental out there.
I agree.
And let's be clear, it's not very popular as a Republican to say, I voted for Biden because I didn't like Trump in the tweeting. I believe there's a lot of Republicans that voted for Biden and did not vote for Trump that are not going to admit that. So, I mean, I'm certain that the McCain family, the Romney family, the Reagan family, the Bush family, none of these folks voted for Trump. But they're not going to go around and admit that. But I can guarantee you, none of them folks were voting for Trump. So I got to go, man.
I got you. I appreciate your time, my man.
Fair enough. Okay. All right.
Next guy. This is a different Gen X week.
For Bob Marley was a prophet. Get up, stand up. I love the song. Okay. Next, I think we talked before, haven't we?
We have. How do I go live?
Say that again.
How do I put my camera on?
Bottom left hand corner, those little two people that's down there, it says multi something. Click on that.
Got
That
it.
should be the way to do it.
Got it. And then, okay, take that off. All right.
There we go.
Here we are,
Welcome
baby.
back. Yeah, we definitely talked before.
Hey, man. First of
So,
all,
did you watch any of the coverage?
I did not. I've been working
Oh
so much.
no.
I've been working so much. I'm sorry. But hey,
It's
before I
okay.
say
Hey,
anything
I
else,
understand.
let me say this. My apologies for the last time I was on your program. Liberal or not, conservative or not, I was a bit. I had a lot to drink, and if I disrespected you in any way, I apologize. That was not my
Well,
intent.
let me say this. All of my broadcasts the next morning, if you go to the Handsome Liberal on YouTube, all of my broadcasts in their entirety are on there. So whatever this program is named right now, if you go to YouTube tomorrow morning and look at the Handsome, it'll be on there. So I'd have to go and look at the footage and see what you were saying that day.
I was acting a fool.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. Fair enough.
But to be fair, I dig your broadcast.
Thank you.
We are polar opposites, but I believe in
That's fair.
conversation.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Hold on, I'm going to decline that. Tonight, I want to be a little light. I'm not going to take too much of your time. I'd rather have more of your time when I'm completely sober, because I think we could have a really good conversation.
You're scaring me. What's on your mind, though? Go ahead and get it out.
No. Don't let me scare you, brother. What you guys are talking about as far as Joe Biden and this and that, dude, I think that is so subjective. Man, it's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. God, what I think is different from
what are you referring to? What are you referring to when you say it's ridiculous?
Joe Biden's policies.
Okay. What about it is ridiculous?
All right, let's narrow the thing. Gas prices.
Okay.
Can we agree on that?
You're saying, can we agree that gas prices are ridiculously high?
Well, of course they're ridiculously high.
Yeah,
I got a second mortgage in my house to pay for gas.
We can agree on that. We can agree that gas prices are out of hand.
Now, here's my thing, and I know you're going to disagree with me here, but does the president influence gas prices? I say yes, absolutely.
I do too. I believe that he could use leverage on countries like for instance, they like to blame it on OPEC. You're going to tell me the United States cannot open up their mouth, for instance, and make deals with OPEC nations that they can't refuse? I truly believe that the president could make all types of movement on gas prices, even if he just made them for the United States. I don't care if we're paying, $2.50 a gallon and they're paying, $9 a liter in Europe. If he wanted to, he could go to the OPEC nations and make, whether it's providing protection or whether it's tariffs or taxes or forgiving debt. Yeah, there's all kinds of moves that he could make behind the scenes that I do believe someone like Trump would make, even if it's up to and including threatening them. I know Trump said some crazy shit, but I do believe that Trump could probably go behind the scenes and talk to them in a manner that, it may be unorthodox. It may ruin our relationship with certain countries, but yeah, I do believe Trump would probably have done something in regards to this. But go ahead.
Can I ask you something?
Sure.
Do you think if Trump was elected tomorrow, do you think gas prices would go up, down, or stay the same?
Well, it's not gonna happen that fast, but I do believe they would eventually start trending downward. I do believe, like I said, he would.
Right.
I believe he would make deals behind the scenes or just threaten people outright. I do believe he would. It would not be fun to watch how the sausage is made, but you would get sausage at the end of the day. That's just how I believe.
That's fair. Okay, so why do you think he would get gas prices lowered? What methodology do you think he'd use to accomplish that?
Anything he could come up with: bullying, breaking relationships, threatening people. It would be literally like watching a mob boss. I mean, and that's why someone who's cordial and professional and a polished politician like Joe Biden is not going to do that, because he'd rather we live out the storm of high gas prices and maintain alliances and relationships and win the war, as opposed to Trump would go at it and make sure he won the battle. But we may come out of the battle missing allies, terrible relationships, and things like that. But while he won the battle, we'd be paying a lot less for gas.
Can I say something?
Sure.
You said a polished politician like Joe Biden, to quote
Yes.
you, right?
Yes. Quote.
So
Yes.
a politician that says, we can go ahead and we can buy Burger King at McDonald's and we can get Dairy Queen prices for a double snow cone purchased at 7-Eleven. You see where I'm going with that?
I get where you're going, but my guess is somebody like Biden, if he's talking to another world leader and not yelling to a crowd, is probably a hell of a lot different. There's a reason why he's been in politics for 40 plus years, has reached
And
across the
accomplished
aisle to
nothing,
people
to
like,
be fair. To be
he's reached
fair,
across the aisle to people like Newt
he's not
Gingrich.
passed one bill. Not one
You said
bill
what?
in 47 years. Joe Biden has been in politics for 47 years. He has not passed one bill. Not one. Not two. One.
Well, I haven't looked up what he was doing in the state of Delaware, but as a senator, there's no way I'm gonna believe he hasn't passed one bill in 40-something years.
Look it up.
I'd have
I
I'd have
wouldn't
to
lie
see
to you, my
proof of that.
brother. I actually like you. I think you are a wealth of information. I think you are very, very, very articulate, and I think you're very knowledgeable. And you're not far. I would pull the age card. I'm 53. I think you're not too far behind me. So I think
I'm in
you're
late 40s, late 40s, late 40s.
Yeah, your ideology of what is very close to my own. I really enjoy you.
Well, I appreciate that.
But I think that there's a conversation to be had on what Joe Biden has actually accomplished. If we look at it as a whole, dude, he's not accomplished anything in 47 or 37 years. Like literally nothing.
And see, I would have to, I don't know his record coming from Delaware. I mean, I know he's responsible for the Universal Care Act working with Obama. I'm pretty certain that when it came to Obama passing the Universal Care Act, Joe Biden was making a hell of a lot of phone calls behind the scenes. Because Joe Biden is the one that has all the friends in Washington, not President Obama. So anything you want to credit Obama for, you could be damn sure President Biden was the one behind the scenes making phone calls to all his friends in Washington. So
Obama
he
did
may
a lot
not have his
more than Biden did. Obama
said
did a
what?
lot more than Biden did. All the shit that Obama passed off to Biden, Biden fell asleep, and Obama was like, "Hey, hold on, hey, we got to get this done," and Obama did it. I voted for Obama in 2012. I got no problem with Obama. You know what? Obama did one thing, in my opinion, that is fantastic. When he found out that we were messing, I'm sorry, I'm going to cuss. We're fucking with gain of function research. Obama cut it down and sent it to China, which kind of blew up in our face with COVID, but Obama was smart enough to do that. Joe Biden wanted to keep it in Atlanta, and we see kind of how that worked out. Yes.
Okay. Well, let's not get too far back into the Obama administration. I will just say this: when Obama ran, he knew he was coming into a theater where no black man had gone before, for the most part.
That's fair.
And
That's fair.
the only way he was going to get in there was to get in there with some well-connected folks. And Joe Biden is about as well-connected in Washington, D.C. as you can get. And the only point I'm trying to make when you suggest that Biden has never done anything, I have to give him credit for maintaining the Obama administration. I am certain that when Obama wanted to pass legislation, when Obama wanted things to happen, Joe Biden was behind the scenes making phone calls and calling in deals because he is the one with all the contacts, not Obama. I mean, Obama was a young guy. Biden had been around, like I said, since the Clinton administration, and he's been a congressperson since the 70s. So, yeah, there's a reason why Obama chose him as a running mate, because any issues that I have, I know this guy has a lot of favors to call in. But at the end of the day, Obama's name gets put on all the legislation. But yeah, I'm 100% certain Biden did a hell of a lot of things behind the scenes for the Obama administration. It just makes sense.
Obama wasn't that young. To be fair, Obama wasn't that young.
He wasn't connected.
His mid to late 40s.
He was not connected in Washington at all. He was a senator for 2 years and became president.
I'm just quoting you. You said Obama wasn't that young. he was that young. And in fact, he was in his late 40s, early 50s before he got the presidency. So,
Okay.
you know, the
I
the
get it. I get
position
it.
you
I
hit me
get it.
with is not entirely accurate.
Okay. Fair enough.
Obama,
Fair enough.
at the
Okay.
time, he's pretty
But you
good.
get my point. You get my point
I
that
do.
Biden is
I do.
extremely well
I do.
connected. And yeah, you don't think Obama utilized that?
He did, and he
Yeah,
should. He
exactly.
did and he
All right. Well,
should.
I got to move
But
it
I
on,
think
man.
Joe
Go ahead.
Biden's claim to fame is God damn it, I didn't want to do this. I wanted to have a fun conversation with you about something else other than
Hey,
politics.
it's a love fest. We're having a lot of fun.
Yeah, but I don't want you to kick my ass, and I don't want to kick your ass.
No ass is kicked in the making of this
No
debate.
ass is kicked.
No ass is being kicked in the making of this debate. All right, but
No
I gotta
ass
go,
is
man. I gotta move it
kicked.
on. All right, have a good one.
All right, brother. I'll say
You too.
this.
Oh, you said all right, brother, and I turned it off. I missed the last clip of yours. I guess your dictator wouldn't know. Okay. When Trump was POTUS, it cost us $56 for every barrel it produced. Hey, I get it. And I see you said Miss Goddess said keep on topic. No snowflakes, bro. Ask anything. Appreciate that. Okay, let me go to my next caller. And by the way, folks, like I said, I know a lot of you guys did not watch the live hearings. So it's very difficult for those who didn't watch to have a conversation because if you just simply believe Trump had nothing to do with it, I'm not going to watch any information that comes out, then I guess it is what it is at the end of the day. It would be like, refusing to watch 2000 Mules, refusing to watch Michael and Dale, refusing to listen to Trump, and just saying the election was fair. Then it's real difficult to debate with somebody like that if they didn't see anything. Okay, political TikTok.
I did, and it just blamed Trump, says Jay Walker. Well, it didn't. Hang on a second, political TikTok. The live hearings did not just blame Trump. It showed stuff that folks were disputing, like no police were harmed, or everybody was let in, or the Capitol Police are lying and nobody really harmed. I mean, it showed a lot of that too. Political TikTok. Good evening.
What's going on?
None at all, man.
First, I want to clear up something what he just said. I believe that Joe Biden helped pass the Violence Against Women Act. I believe Joe Biden helped pass the ban on assault weapons during and like you
Clinton.
said, with Clinton. And then, like you said, even with the Obamacare, he was basically calling the Senate and rallying those people. Also, since he's been in office, passed an infrastructure bill that no president recently could have been able to do, and plus the American Rescue Plan. But that's just that. I guess.
Well, let me make it clear. Let me make it clear. There's no way you're going to be a senator for as long as Biden has been a senator without passing a single bill. That
Right.
I just don't have off the top of my head Biden legislation over all of the decades or a couple generations of him being in office. But yeah, I'm certain any politician that has been around as long as Biden has their name on some stuff. It's just my audience leaning right. You're not going to agree with none of this shit. Like you mentioned, the assault weapons bill. They're not going to agree with that. But on the left, that's what they wanted them to do. But go ahead.
Well, I would say the next thing I would say before we get to January 6th would be about what was he talking about before? Well, I guess I'll just move to January 6th and I can't think of it. Maybe it'll pop in my head. But you watched that or what?
I watched the last hour of it. I was on here doing a live for the first hour, and because I thought I messed the times up. It started an hour early, so I watched the second half of it.
I mean, that was just unbelievable. I mean, I just can't believe anybody can watch that and still support Donald Trump. Now, I know a couple callers before you said, you could be pro-life, you could be this, but I mean, what we saw, come on. I mean, they were. This was I'm willing to call it a war zone. I mean, people were getting beat up. I mean, it was just so much chaos, and he sat back and didn't do anything about it. And for him to let his vice president get beat down like that, or even, trying to get beat down like that, it's just despicable. I mean, I just can't believe they would want him back in 2024. I mean, I just.
Well, I will say this. regardless if Trump is criminally culpable or not, we can see where the investigation leads on that. But one thing I think that has been proven without a shadow of a doubt is that that protest was violent. And the Trump administration, Trump himself, and a lot of my MAGA folks I talk to do not believe that. I believe the video footage shown from what happened there that day. Clearly, they were not all let in. Some of them were, but clearly they were not all let in. What happened that day from those protesters with the police was pretty damn violent. But go ahead.
Do you think he could be held criminally liable for any of that?
I think it's a waste of time to even go down that avenue. Like I told one of my callers a few callers back, I think it was Miss Goddess was talking about locking him up. That ain't even safe. I mean, even if you had him dead to rights, I would have his attorney. I would advise his attorney to let him know we're willing to make a deal that you just get out of politics and ride off into the sunset. Don't
Yeah, it
hold
would.
any political rallies, don't endorse any candidates, but locking him up would be dangerous.
Well, I was gonna say, it would even be hard for me to picture him in jail. I don't know how the Secret Service would work out because he's still the president, former president. So you can't throw him in with general population. But I just think
Don't waste your time. Don't even waste your time. It's never going to happen. Don't even try to picture it. I mean, you do better. You would have a bigger chance seeing me get on here with Holly Berry sitting next to me. It's not going to happen. It's just never going to happen.
Well, I guess I'll just say I just can't believe this happened, man, and I can't believe people are still defending him. I mean, even not the guy before, but the guy before him, just making excuses. Well, that's the type of person. I mean, come on, this is serious stuff, y'all. I mean, this hadn't happened in over 200 something years. He was the first person not to go with precedent. And I just think it's more dangerous than people are thinking. They're like, well, it was just, it happened. And no, he formed. He told them we were going to go down there. They went in there and they really believed his lies. And people got hurt. Some people died. And it's such a stain on this country. I can't fathom people still supporting Donald Trump. I mean, it's unbelievable. And that's what I was going to say. I know you said you're not a religious person, but I was going to say, thank God for you to be able to listen to Trump, to be able to listen to
Well, I
Trump's
appreciate it.
and listen to
Regardless if I'm religious or not, I appreciate it.
to listen to to me, nonsense. I can't believe you can sit there and listen to these excuses for a guy that they say is so smart. He knew what was going on.
Well, let me be clear. Let me be clear, and I say this on every broadcast, regardless if I agree with people or not, I let them speak because I've had a lot of liberals come on here and tell me that Biden is not responsible for anything that's happening in America right now. People will make excuses for folks they like. I'll just leave it at that.
I think that's true. You know what? I did think of what I was going to say, and then I'll be done. With the gas prices, you said Biden hadn't done it. Biden did expect to increase production. He did release over 1 million barrels a day out the oil reserves. So this notion that he hasn't done anything to try to get gas prices down, I just think isn't factual. I mean, he's even trying to go to Saudi Arabia and see what we can do. And a lot of people are criticizing him for that. So I think the notion to say he hasn't tried to do anything, I don't think is true. Could more be done, obviously. But he has tried to do something.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll echo what folks in the comments are saying, and that is it's too late or he hasn't done enough or what. Let's just be clear. I'll just come at you from an unbiased angle. Let's be clear. If this was happening and Trump was reelected, we would be blaming Trump, even if it was the exact same circumstance. There would be no way folks on the left would look at Trump and say, none of this is your fault. Under the exact same circumstance, people will be blaming Trump for higher gas prices.
But you know, too, that Donald Trump will be saying, hey, it wasn't me. This happened, this happened, this happened.
That's politics. Just like Biden is. Biden is saying exactly the same thing. That's just politics. It's a blame game. I used to say this about Trump. When Trump was in office, all of the crime happening in this country was the responsibility of liberal mayors, liberal governors, and it was happening in liberal cities. It was the mayors and the governors' fault. the minute Biden got elected, it was suddenly Biden's fault too. And it was like, well, when you were president, it wasn't your fault. But now the liberal becomes president, you're blaming him. So they all play the blame game. That's how it works. Is when something good happens, it's my responsibility. When something bad happens, it's somebody else's fault.
Well, I guess to close out, for my final say, I would just say, man, what we seen on January 6th, it was a sad, tragic day. I think more and more is going to come out in this trial. And I think people really need to watch those videos and that violence. And if you see that, there's no way you could agree with something like that. There's no way. It's just, it's embarrassing.
It's gonna be challenging. It's gonna be challenging. But I appreciate you coming through, man. We'll see how it goes. But you can't get people to watch. I don't know, but I appreciate that.
I'll see.
All right. Okay.
Somebody said something I wanted to respond to, and I don't see where it went. But the Republicans are brutal. They point fingers way too much. I believe we do that too. Let me see here. I was looking for a comment. I don't know where it was. But anyway, I'm just simply saying that, and I asked this to some callers. If you're in a position where you look at January 6th and you come up with everything from Antifa, Black Lives Matter, the Capitol Police are lying, you can't trust the FBI, the media is lying to you. At some point, you have to realize that person is not going to believe anything other than what they want to believe. If you're in a position where you don't believe any entity that was there that day, there's no need to even discuss what happened with you. You're not going to believe anything. You have your own opinion. You were not there, but yet you don't believe anybody who was. And what can you do with somebody like that? And there's a lot of folks who are in that camp. Let's go to one Chevy, and we'll keep moving it on. Biden stopped
drilling. We had to buy for. Yeah, I'm not saying that Biden is not responsible for gas prices. You're not going to hear me say that. Maybe not. He's not 100% responsible, but the notion that he's not responsible at all, I'm not going to say that. One Chevy 77. Good evening.
Good evening, sir. How are you doing this evening?
I'm doing real good. Did you catch any of the live footage this evening?
No, I did not. I didn't make it in time. I was working on something.
Right.
I was begging you to let me in with the sheep smasher earlier. I wanted him to meet a Trump voter that thinks Trump is an asshole that needed to stay off Twitter.
Oh, okay. I've encountered. I mean, even though folks truly believe Trump did a good job, and I totally understand that. Certainly now in this economy, I understand that. But I'm amazed that more and more Trump voters and Trump supporters are starting to admit what he was doing on Twitter was wrong. But while he was doing it, they weren't saying that.
Oh, yeah, I was. But, that's just how it goes. Let's talk about this January 6th thing. The way that it was originally set up and it was supposed to be done was basically a shot across the bow to the government. Basically a warning to the government that, hey, we the people are in charge. You're not in charge. But it got out of hand. There was people got involved with it that should have never been there. And I think it got way out of hand and went way further than it was originally intended to go.
Okay. All right. When you say people were involved that should not have been there, who are you referring to?
Like the Proud Boys. And yes, there were some Antifa in there. And
let me just ask this real quick, because you're not the only one that suggests Antifa was there. Where are you guys getting that information? What information you have that suggests Antifa was there?
Facial recognition software. It has identified at least 10 people that have been previously arrested that are with Antifa, associated with Antifa. But
can you send me some links or something? I would love to see what that is. Who uses the facial recognition software, and because the FBI said they weren't involved, so who had access to the faces in the crowd?
The FBI also said Trump was in collusion with Russia. So
yeah, that is true. That is true. But to some degree, Mueller did the investigation. He was the FBI's attorney, and he said he couldn't prove it. So To some degree, they
Yes.
didn't fully say he was involved with Russia. But in regards to the facial recognition software, who used the software? Who had access to the
I,
footage? Where? Who did this?
I, I will definitely look up the links and send it to you. Um, but what you were saying earlier about Trump being criminally responsible, if they find him criminally responsible, so be it. I mean, if that's what they find, but if they're going to do this, let's call a spade a spade. Schumer was on the courthouse steps of the Supreme Court a week ago saying Kavanaugh would pay for some of his decisions. All
Okay.
right, now
Well, let
you've
me
got
let me
somebody
say
that
this.
attempted to kill Kavanaugh.
Okay, I get what you're saying about like Maxine Waters and some of them have said insightful things as well. I get what you're saying,
Hmm.
but your statement of if Trump is guilty, so be it. I don't think that that's the case. Even if a
Yeah.
true jury convicts Trump, there are going to be a lot of Americans. There are a lot of folks out there that will not accept Trump being responsible for this, no matter what evidence comes out. It's not going to be a case of so be it. There are folks
Oh,
who
I
just
agree with that. I don't
yeah.
disagree one bit with that. But at the same time, I'm just saying if we're going to do this, if they're going to hold him and find him guilty, let's call a spade and let's go after Schumer. Let's go after Maxine Walters. Let's go after Pelosi. Let's go after the whole bunch of them. Because if it's what's good for one is good for the other.
Right. I'm not disagreeing with that, but I don't think that it's going to work out like that. Here's what I think is going to happen, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, and folks in the audience can suggest if I'm wrong as well. In my opinion, if you are on the right, my beloved audience, my MAGA folks, if you believe that Trump is innocent on what took place on January 6th, first, you should compel the right wingers that are currently in Congress and the Senate to come forward and release some type of statement. They have access to some of the video. They can, subpoena and get information. But let's go a step further. We're expecting a red wave to take place in November. And here's where I think it separates the truth from fiction. And that is if the Republicans take control of the House, Senate, or even both, if they decide to then hold an investigation, and they can label it the truth or they can label it the whole package coming out. If they do that, they would have some credibility. But if they take control of the House and Senate and they sweep this under the rug, then it looks like they corrupt as hell. It looks like they're trying to hide something. We'll see what happens because
Oh,
they
I
probably
agree. I
will.
agree completely.
Okay, fair enough.
But
Because they probably
my
will. They
my
probably
thing
will end
is,
up
and
taking control.
yeah, my thing is, and the problem I have with the Republicans taking control, don't get me wrong, I think in the right light, that would be a good thing. But every time, and I mean every time, the Republicans have had control of the House, the Senate, and the White House at the same time, they couldn't get shit done. They were too busy fighting amongst each other.
Yeah.
But, oh, and on your earlier caller, as far as Biden writing and getting bills passed, Biden has never had a bill that he sponsored passed. Now, he has co sponsored several bills. There's a lot of bills that have his name on them as a co-sponsor, but he has never come out and wrote his own legislation.
Okay. All right, fair enough. I mean, I got a list in front of me here of things that he sponsored going back to at least 2008, and there's got to be at least 50 things here. But in regards to him actually writing it himself, I'd have to look deeper into him. If he didn't, he did. And I've said this before. It's not that Biden is some great guy. Biden got elected because a lot of folks think that Trump is a terrible guy. If Trump was
Oh, I
a
agree.
regular, yeah, go ahead.
I agree with that 100%, but that
Yeah.
goes back to honestly, I don't care if you're right, you're left, you're liberal, whatever. You've got to have some questions about this last election. I mean, if
Questions, yeah,
better
having questions.
Biden's
There's a big difference
Biden's the
between,
president.
yeah, there's a big
Biden's the
difference between
president,
having,
but it is
well,
what it
hear
is.
me out. There's a big difference between having questions and saying that Trump won by a landslide and they stole it. That's not questions. You're making judgments at that point.
Yeah, I'm not disagreeing with that either. But like I said, it don't matter what part of the aisle you stand on. if you look at it objectively, you've got to have some questions. Kind of like the gentleman brought up a while ago. Biden got more votes than Obama did. I
Mm-hmm.
don't see that happening. Obama was a very popular president for the most part. And I do know a lot of people didn't like Biden before, even Trump, anti-Trumpers didn't like Biden. So where did this 81 million votes come from that is more
Well,
than what
and see,
Obama
I
got?
can't. Right. And see, I can't speak to that. And you're right. Obama was an extremely popular president. I think what you're leaving out is Trump was probably one of the most unpopular presidents or had some of the most hateful numbers in quite a while. So, I mean, how many Republicans either sat out or voted for Biden in spite? We don't know. Just like Hillary Clinton, if Bernie Sanders caused a lot of her voters to not vote, caused a lot of Democrats rather to vote either
Well,
for Trump or sit it out.
I'll tell all the listeners in here, if you voted for Biden, you owe me some damn gas money.
Well, what would you tell the Capitol Police though?
Well, I ain't got shit to say to the Capitol Police. I hadn't been to the Capitol, so I can't say nothing to them.
All right,
I have
fair
to
enough.
fill.
All
I
right,
have
well,
to
let me
fill my
move it
truck
on,
up
man.
every day. So yeah, it hurts.
Yeah, no shit. I understand. I drive for a living as well, but I got to move it on, man. Come on back to.
All right, brother, be good.
All right, you too. Okay, always good to talk to one Chevy. Okay, look.
Let's hear real quick. You said it either. What did I say? You said it either. Everyone was tired of Trump, just like Biden is hated by lots now too. That's true. Biden's numbers are terrible. My guess is Biden won't run again. But Trump is indicating that he may still. If I get folks in the comments all the time, every broadcast, why do you guys still continue talking about Trump? As if Trump should be able to have rallies, getting involved in campaigns like Dr. Oz's campaign, getting involved in campaigns like going against Governor Kemp down in Georgia. Like this guy should be able to do all of this stuff all around the country and nobody should talk about him. That has got to be the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life. We're only 2 years from the next presidential election, and everybody just about believes that he is running. But yet the Democrats should just quietly remain quiet while he insults the hell out of them. I get that from so many MAGA folks. Why do you guys keep talking about him? Because he is an active opponent. That's why they're talking about him. Let me go in the next comments. He's a leader of the Republican Party. His endorsement is about as strong as any. Is probably stronger than any endorsement from any other Republican. Of course, he's going. He can. And I read your comment. Who said that? David Rout said. Oh no, that wasn't it. That was the Big DM said he lives rent free. Yeah, he's going to always live rent free. He's going to live rent free for quite a while. As long as he keeps indicating that he's going to run for office and he keeps getting involved in politics and destroying careers and making other careers and helping people. Yeah, he's going to live rent free. He is news. If you were a reporter and you were talking politics, there's no way you would do your job and be worth your salary without talking about Trump. That it just makes no sense. But it makes sense coming from my MAGA folks because obviously you want him back in office. He was doing a good job. He was doing what you want. So you want him back in office. And if people shut the hell up and quit trying to deface him and make him look bad, he has a better chance to give you what you want. So you have a vested interest in helping people be quiet about him. Same thing with what's going on with the January 6th investigation. It's in your best interest as MAGA, as a Trump supporter, that goes away. So, and I understand it. I mean, the liberals would want the same thing, but it's in your best interest that shit goes away. Trump warned Germany about buying Russian oil. All right. It doesn't have to be Trump, just a strong leader in office. I agree with that, but Gen X, I don't believe any Republican, even DeSantis, would have the type of love and support from the Republican Party that Trump has. Everything from the name calling to the way he deals with world leaders and things like that. It is that heavy competitive nature that folks are drawn to. You're not going to get that even from Ron DeSantis. He is more of a polished politician. And my guess is if Ron DeSantis ended up being on the top of the ticket and became president, he would be well liked, but he would be quite boring. He would not be like Trump. He's probably not going to hold continuous rallies and all of that. It would be back to regular politics as normal. And folks would probably be picking up the phone and calling Trump, asking him, well, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? Trump is going to live rent free in Republican and Democrats' heads for the rest of his life. Not everyone is drawn to Trump. Yeah, but most people are, particularly people who eat, sleep, and breathe politics. Most people are drawn to Trump. He is very interesting. He's a very interesting politician. Jay.
We voted for that snake. Well, we voted for that to shake things up in Washington against the. Yeah, and he shook things up, but he only lasted 4 years. Jay, what does it say? Jay Port 68. Good evening.
Good afternoon. First of all, I want to say that yes, I'm a conservative, but I'm a more of a constitutionalist. And
Okay.
I would say one thing that really hurt Trump is that he rubbed people the wrong way. I think that's one of the big things that really hurt him.
Well, it's one thing to rub people the wrong way, but in my opinion, he rubbed people the wrong way deliberately. Okay, perfect example. If you're working at your job and some guy walks in off the street and tells your boss, tells your CEO, hire me to the company and I'll help you get rid of the waste. I'll help you get rid of all your lazy employees and people who are not doing their job. I'll name names and help fire people. Just hire me in as a manager. If he gets hired, none of the employees are going to like him because he's made it clear he's coming in to drain the swamp and go after everybody. And that's what happened with Trump is that he made it clear I'm here to disrupt everything you guys have gotten comfortable with. So the notion that, well, nobody ever gave him a chance from day one or Republicans didn't work with him, well, you kind of came in indicating you was going to be a snitch. So of course people are not going to like you. The voters love that because the voters like politicians being held accountable. But yeah, his fellow politicians are not going to work with him. But go ahead.
I don't, and as far as saying Trump is the kind of the leader of the Republican Party, I don't really know if he is now. I don't know that he was because he did have a lot of people that kind of turned whenever things went south. I mean, he kind of a lot of people kind of turned their back on him.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, I think what happened on January 6th, whether you think he's culpable or not, it was not good for the Republican Party. Now, Trump is more like the Teflon Don. Nothing sticks to him. However, the folks who surround him, who are near him, it does destroy them. I mean, he's had friends locked up, associates, serve time, getting indicted and things like that. So it wouldn't surprise me if some Republican politicians are like, he only has 4 more years left. I could be here for the rest of my life. I'm not going to screw this up riding with this guy for only 4 more years. That's what I believe. But go ahead.
Yeah, and I mean, politicians, left or right, I mean, they're birds of the same wing. I mean, they're both corrupt, both sides,
Yeah,
because they're politicians.
true. I can agree with that. So, do you believe Trump is culpable at all for what took place on January 6th?
I haven't seen all the footage, so I really don't know. But
Okay.
I
Do you believe it was a love fest, a tour of the Capitol building, or do you believe it was a violent protest?
well, I mean, there's some footage that where they actually showed where they actually allowed them to go in. So I don't know.
What about the footage you saw of people breaking windows and climbing walls?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying if it's criminal. If there's something criminal, then people should be held accountable, regardless of whether right or left.
Okay. So what about the notion that the folks who did get arrested, they're blaming Trump. They're saying that Trump is the one. He told us to come here, and we were doing this on behalf of Trump.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, huh, I don't know. I mean, if someone told you to jump off a bridge, would you do it just because someone said do it?
True, but when it's the president, folks are going to, yeah, there are folks who might jump off the bridge for a president. This is not your neighbor telling you to do something. This is somebody who has power. If you go commit a crime for the president, this is somebody that can get you out of jail. So the notion that you might not do something stupid for somebody changes a bit when they have that kind of power.
But can you trust that they're going to do what they say they're going to do once you do it?
Well, if you trust that they're running your country, if you trust that, if there are people who believe he signed the third Declaration of Independence, if you can trust all of that, yeah, I would say you could trust them.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of things that aren't right in this country.
Yeah,
The government, I
yeah.
think, in my opinion, I think the government's the biggest problem.
You said say that again.
I said, in my opinion, I think the government's the problem. It's not, I don't have a problem with people. I have a problem with the government because of the
Okay.
way they're running things and the way they're doing things. Left over.
Well, but you do understand the reason we have the federal government and the reason the government has gotten so big in size is because the people were not running the country properly. If left to their own devices, the people are harmful to themselves.
Yeah. Well, I think big government is never a good thing. Too much regulation with the government is never a good thing.
All right, that's a fair counterpoint, and I say it all the time is that it's like a swinging pendulum. If you let the people, the private sector, states' rights, if you let them go too far, they become corrupt. If you let big government go too far, it becomes corrupt. You do need a push pull, and there's where there has to be some kind of balance in between. I think both entities are needed, but yeah, if you let either side go too far, it will be corrupt.
Yeah, I agree. I mean,
Okay.
I think it can be. I think it can happen. I mean, I don't know. I
All
mean,
right, fair.
I just think that maybe there just needs to be somewhere. There needs to be some common ground somewhere. That's what
Well,
needs
I
to
think
happen.
I would say in regards to common ground, I think what's going on right now with the mass casualty events, it's starting to look like more and more Second Amendment supporters are in favor of potentially raising the age of maturity up to 21. So there is a shred of light at the end of the tunnel. It's no longer a case where everybody is saying shall not be infringed upon. You got a lot of folks that were strong supporters of the Second Amendment suggesting that they raise the age. So we may have common ground in some of these issues to, even if only from a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, as far as these some of these people, I've heard people on the left say, all these past gun laws, past ban this, ban that. You're not going to stop. The thing is that you have to realize that people have to realize is regardless of what laws that you pass, criminals don't abide by those laws, and criminals are
Right.
criminals for a reason, and they're going to get a hold of guns regardless of whether the honest people have them or not. So then what happens is if you take, okay, let's just say for instance that they took all the guns, they completely banned guns. Then what happens is you got criminals with guns and you got people breaking in houses, causing and murdering people. You got the crime rate goes skyrocket because there's no in between. There's no.
But I mean, here's the problem is, and I've said this on several broadcasts. I guess I would look at it from two different angles. First of all, if we say why pass any gun laws because criminals don't follow laws, they're going to find a way to get a gun anyway. Based on that notion, why pass any laws at all? I mean, like you said, criminals don't follow laws, so why make it against the law to do anything? Because the criminal's not going to follow it. And I guess the other notion I have is that um, I mean, yeah, there's a lot of guns in this country, but the notion that if you take away firearms, Americans are just going to turn evil, there's no precedent for that. In other countries where they've taken guns away from the citizens, the countries didn't turn into a bunch of crazed zombies. We predict in America that if you remove firearms, the absolute worst will happen. It's essentially Eve, or better yet, it's essentially the Garden of Eden, the moment that Eve bites the apple. That's how people paint America without guns, is that everybody is just evil, and the only thing stopping them from just going crazy is that everybody else has a gun. Whatever. What about the notion that most of Americans are just decent people? I mean, are we
But
that bad? Your neighbor has to have a gun, or you'll break into his house and kill him?
but you're only going to keep the honest people honest. I mean that's the thing. You're only the honest people are going to be honest. I mean,
I mean,
if
I get your point. I'm just simply saying, is the country there? Yeah, there's going to always be evil people among us. I get that, but is the number of evil people that great? We make it sound like this country would instantly fall apart with just turmoil and evil, immoral acts if you got rid of guns. Like
okay, well,
it just.
look at the crime rate in America now with guns. What would it be like without guns?
Well, I would. That's a good question. I would tell you this: if you got rid of guns, there are whole crimes that might disappear. For instance, how would you really kill police officers if they were armed and you weren't? Or how would you commit a drive-by without a firearm?
But
If you saw,
honest people
huh?
aren't going to do that though, and those are the
No,
ones to take the guns from
but the
because
point I'm trying to no, but the point I'm trying to make is that if you got rid of guns, the criminals themselves would be at a weaker vantage point because a lot of the crimes they commit would be impossible or extremely difficult to commit.
how so? I mean, they'd still have firearms. They still have guns.
Well, but you're viewing it from a point where it's impossible to stop the average criminal from getting a firearm. I'm viewing it from a point of if they start banning firearms, the price of firearms is going to skyrocket, and the average criminal might not be able to afford it. Like, for instance, if they were to ban firearms in this country, obviously the legal gun owners that can buy guns are going to still get guns. They're going to pay a lot more for them. I would say look at Obama when he got elected in 2008. Folks thought that he was going to go for assault rifles, and I believe the AR-15 tripled in price. That's going to make that firearm cost prohibitive for a lot of people. Everybody's not going to be able to get it at that point. Same thing with criminals. A criminal can always get a gun on the street, but if guns are tripled in price, the criminals are going to charge more for them too. So even on the black market, there are going to be folks who want to commit petty crimes that are going to have a hard time buying weapons. I mean, people are going to start hoarding them and charging more for them. So yeah, you will be able to still get a gun, but now you might need $1,000 to buy one. And some guy who just wants to do liquor store robberies or something may not have the money to do that. That's what I'm pointing out.
Now, if they want to ban guns completely, then I think one thing they should do is they should raise. Okay, so like say if they completely ban guns, which I'm saying when I say ban guns, because obviously the honest people are the only ones they're going to take them from, because like I said, the criminals are still going to get them. But at the same time, if they're going to do that, then jack up the penalty so high that if those criminals do get caught, the penalty is severe. It's very severe if they get caught. That would be one way to stop that too.
Well, I will say this also in liberal cities that they have already done it. Like where I came from in Chicago, the penalty for carrying an illegal firearm is pretty damn high. It's already jacked way the hell up. I would suggest though. Now I know the gun crowd is not fans of registration, and let's just be clear: when you talk about criminals will always be able to get their hands on a gun. Currently in 2022, most criminals that have firearms got them from legal gun owners. You got to come up with a way of getting legal gun owners to do a better job holding on to their firearms, because they are the ones at the top of the pyramid supplying all the criminals with weapons. When folks go, well, a criminal will always be to get a gun on the street. The
They,
street doesn't make guns. The street is not making guns. The street is getting those guns from legal gun owners. They're buying them, stealing them, or finding them from legal gun owners. So I guess the first thing you got to do, if you want to maintain a firearm and maintain your Second Amendment rights, you got to be more responsible with maintaining control of your weapon, because that's where they're getting them from. They're getting
well,
them from us.
well, if they're stolen, then they need to report it to the police. But if they're doing it, if they're not knowingly doing it to make gain, and they're the ones that are the legal fire. If they're the legal gun owner, and guns could be registered in their name, so they
Yeah.
need to be held. They need to be held accountable for doing that, than for selling it to.
Well, the problem is that the left looks at any liberal solution as just fucking insane. And then the right imposes nothing. Like when folks are talking about, well, Joe Biden has never posed any bill. When you look at liberal areas, the liberals believe that the guns are the problem. So you look at the liberal areas, the gun laws are all over the damn place. Now, it's debatable if they're working or not. I understand the right is saying those tough gun laws don't do anything. But when you go to the right wing areas, you go down to Texas or you go to Florida, they strongly believe it's not the guns, it's mental health, or it's a breakup of the family, or it's video games. But when you look at their legislation, okay, you believe it's mental health. Okay, what of your laws have shown that since this started happening, you made it easier for people to get access to mental health facilities? You go into southern states; those are some of the states where the least amount of Americans have health care insurance. They're not even a fan of it. So you can criticize the left. I'm fine with that. If their policies don't work, that's fine. But implement some of your own. And on the right side of the aisle, they're literally doing nothing but just standing there saying the left wing stuff won't work. I don't
Well,
see any great policies coming out of the right wing states that actually allow the citizens to get mental health checks. I'm not seeing anything like that. Go ahead.
that's what they need to do. They need to get more. They need to get on board with more mental health stuff, so that people, that could be another way to, with the checks and balances of people getting or not getting guns. I mean,
All
it could
right,
just
fair
be
enough. Yeah.
that could be just
All right.
one.
Well, listen, I got to move it on. I got to part ways with you, man. I appreciate you coming through as usual.
All right.
All right. You have a good night. Okay.
Now, no, what is that? Says KNO 10 or one something. You said mental health checks will not work. Listen, folks, there are things that won't work. There's things that might work. There's things that might have a little effect. There's things that are totally useless. One of the things I can tell you that is totally useless is just throwing your hands up in the air and saying nothing will work. That is what we've been doing for the last, I don't know, couple generations, or at least the last generation. Nothing's going to work. I would rather try something and see it fail and then get a chance to revamp it or upgrade it or throw it out than to keep doing what we're doing now. Just simply sitting back and saying nothing will work. Everybody's going to get a gun. I mean, this is just a part of having this. No, we got to do better than that. But that's what I'm hearing, particularly from my MAGA folks. Nothing will work. Just let everybody keep getting shot. All right, fair enough. Let me move on to Real Trucker Jeff. This could be interesting.
This could be interesting. Jeff, how are you doing this evening?
Hey, handsome liberal, how we doing? Hey, I was trying to turn my
I'm
camera.
doing good.
Let me see if I can figure that out. How do I? Oh, there it is. Okay, all right, I got it. All right, here I am. How you doing, man?
I'm doing very well. I'm doing very well. So, did you
Good, good.
see any of the live coverage this evening?
I did, and well, I mean, the one knock on that has got to be that it's all one sided. They're not gonna have any cross examination by anybody. It's all in one
It's
direction.
it's
So.
very difficult for it to not be one sided when the other side didn't show up.
No. Pelosi wouldn't allow people like Jim Jordan. There were a few people. I don't know whether it's Gates or whatever. There were the McCarthy had chose what 5 or 6 people, And then Pelosi said, "Nope, we're going to take Cheney and Kinzinger," and wouldn't allow the other ones on there.
Well, Cheney is a Republican. I mean, you guys don't like her, but at the end of the day, she's not a liberal.
Yeah, but I mean, well, she's not even part of the party anymore. Wyoming kicked her out of the party. Same thing with Kinzinger.
Well, in anybody, all of the people you're naming that Pelosi did not let in, if any of those people came in and the evidence started leading them to believe that Trump was culpable, they'd get kicked out of the party also. Everybody that has criticized Trump for what happened on January 6th has been called a Rhino, insulted, or kicked out of the party. There's no way to do it without that happening.
Right. Well, okay. So here, okay. There's one thing that you're not going to see. Right. There are 14,000 hours of videotape from that day that Pelosi will not allow to be reviewed. Now, if you had somebody on there like a Jim Jordan, he would be trying to get that material. But when you have somebody like Cheney, she doesn't care. She, the thing is, I think what we're seeing here is the swamp protecting itself. So Democrat or Republican, Pelosi's going to pick people that are going to protect and defend the corrupt institution that we have in Washington D.C. So that's why they're there.
Let me ask you this. What do you take into the comment? This came from Zig 5000 in the comments. He said Jim Jordan is guilty of helping people. He cannot be a judge if he's guilty of actually being involved in it. What do you think of a comment like that?
Yeah, I think the thing that Jordan was involved in was exercising his constitutional rights, because there were challenges to from certain states. There were challenges to their electors, and he was one of them. So they said, "Oh, you did what you're legally authorized to do based on the Constitution," and they used that as a rationale for not letting him on. That's ridiculous. That's ridiculous.
I don't know the story. I'm gonna claim ignorance on that. I can't speak on it because I don't know what and it looks like Darnell was saying Jim Jordan talked to Trump on January 6th. I don't know the whole story in regards to Jim Jordan, so I can't counter on that. But I'm seeing folks in the comments that are definitely claiming Jim Jordan has a lot more play in this than what you're saying.
Look, I'm not aware that he's been charged with anything, but so that's near here. You think that Trump is the head of the party, and you're a Republican, and this stuff's going down on January 6th. You don't think you're going to call the guy? I mean, these guys, they're coming up with these objections that are absurd. That's ridiculous. Why wouldn't he call him? You'd call him if it was you. You know what I mean?
Well,
Come on.
yeah, I agree with that, but I mean the way things went down between him and Mike Pence, it's hard to look at this and come up with things that you would reasonably think would happen. I mean, because I would assume that Trump would have called Mike Pence to check on him, and apparently he did not for several days.
Yeah, and here that's I've said this too. When, like, for example, when Reagan was president, he had and pretty much the GOP didn't like him, and he chose Bush, and then as soon as he was out, then everything was flipped back to same old weak-kneed Republican policies again. So so that was Pence's role, is just to really support the party. Trump, here's the thing: Trump is a threat to that corrupt. That's why I voted for him, because he's a threat to the corruption that we have in DC, and they want to protect and defend themselves. So that's what we're witnessing with these 1-6 here.
Here's what I don't get. Considering the way our politics is set up, Trump is a CEO. Trump is a very successful businessman. Business and politics aren't ran the same. As a businessman, you can actually succeed with a my way or the highway approach because you own the damn place. As a politician, you need Senate and Congress to help implement the policies you want to utilize to make the country great. So when you come in there saying you're going to drain the swamp and calling everybody names and stuff like that, it's not like a CEO in the boardroom they can get away with that. So you're saying he was a threat to them. How would you expect to be a successful leader if you're a threat to all of the people that you need to implement your policies?
Well, he's only right. Well, like I said, the from my perspective, the Republican Party has always basically been controlled opposition. They really haven't been any use to the actual Republican voter. So the people that would support actual Republican ideals and the agenda would be fine. It's just that the job of the Republicans is to lose to the Democrats. They don't have a backbone, and so people like that would be in jeopardy. But I think what's happening now with a lot of the endorsements that Trump is throwing out there, he's trying to put a team together that would be more supportive. So I think if he did return in 2024, he'd be able to be more successful because he's got more support. I think the Republican voter is waking up to the fact that we have to get rid of these losers that have been betraying the Republican voter for so long.
And see, I don't. And see, here's the thing. I'm willing to give Trump credit because I believe he was successful at maintaining a good economy. Yeah, he inherited a good economy from Obama, but it got even better for a short time under him before the pandemic. So I give him credit to that. But as far as the drain the swamp stuff, and like what you're saying, he's a threat and all of that. He was in office for 4 years and he didn't drain a single swamp character. All of the nefarious senators and Congress people that were there when he came were there when he left. The only people Trump drained were folks he appointed and brought himself. The drain the swamp thing, in my opinion, is just like lock her up, or just like you go to the rallies and you hear folks chanting term limits. I truly believe that the reason my MAGA folks believe that Trump was the best president we've had in recent times has more to do with feeling than actual legislation. We can talk about the economy. That was great. We can talk about him appointing 3 Supreme Court judges and getting Roe versus Wade. All of that he gets credit for. That's what you want. That's what you got. But the big things, term limits, Hillary Clinton getting locked up and drain the swamp. That stuff had no chance of ever happening. He wasn't even trying to make it happen. Trump never suggested passing any legislation to give you term limits. He never didn't perform any investigation on Hillary Clinton whatsoever. This stuff was never going to happen, but folks left the rallies. Hey, we said drain the swamp, and finally we got a president that, listen, I think he's going to take us into consideration. No, he's not. We said lock her up, lock her up. Finally, when we're yelling lock her up, you see how he was quiet and he's listening to us. He's going to do something. No, he's not. And so you leave these rallies feeling energized like something's going to happen that is not going to happen. But go ahead.
Just directly to that, I think one thing that he did was expose how corrupt, especially the Department of Justice. I don't think he realized what he was up against when he goes into Washington, and then they knew that this Russia nonsense was all just phony and made up. The FBI knew it, and they ran with it because they wanted to get him out of there, right? So one of the things that he has to do is really get rid. We need to start over with the FBI and the CIA and Homeland Security and all that stuff because they're so corrupt,
But that stuff is not gonna happen. At best, if he gets elected, he has 4 years. The first 4 years of his term, if he serves a total of 8 years, the first 4 years he served, he didn't even come remotely close to accomplishing any of that stuff in regards to draining.
Yeah, that was a huge disappointment to me because the first thing that he should have done on day one was everybody that he was capable of firing, he should have fired them. Because you watched that show, he had that, I didn't watch it. This show he's firing everybody on his TV show. He fired everybody every week. The Apprentice. So that was one. I'm like, oh yeah, that's what we need is somebody that's going to go in there and into DC and fire everybody. And I really believe that he might do that because of that TV
Nobody is going to. But see, then you would turn the Republican Party into a bunch of Mitt Romneys and John McCain's. Nobody is going to work with you when you're going around the country calling them corrupt and saying that you're going to fire them. Nobody's going to help you pass their legislation, treating them like shit.
Well, that's not the politics. I'm talking about the administrative state in Washington. I would go in there with an agenda and say, okay, you know what we're going to do? We're going to balance the budget. Got to balance the budget. We're spending too much money, and here's how we're going to do it. We're going to cut this administrative state by 20%. You're either going to cut your pay or you're going to cut jobs, whatever, and go to the heads of all those departments and go get rid of them and trim that shit down.
But see,
that would be my.
Right, I get your point. And see, this is where I think Obama got it right. And I don't have an Obama was right hat, but Obama said he told Trump personally, this stuff sounds great when you're promising it, he said, but when you actually get in office and try to do it, it's not going to be that easy. And what you're suggesting is um, help reduce corruption and waste on some of the down lower levels. I'm just simply saying these senators and these Congress people, they have constituents they got to answer to. The stuff you guys are talking about, at the end of the day, they want to serve another term too. They're going to be there their whole lives. Trump has a max of only 4 more years left. They don't want to follow him down a rabbit hole and end what could be a very long and lucrative career, helping him
Yeah,
drain the swamp, and they're not going to get any credit for it. He is. So
right, right.
I cannot imagine this happening.
Yeah, but I think one of the things that is good though is that because George W. Bush said the same thing. I heard his press secretary, that short blonde lady, I forget her name. Anyway, she
You're
has
talking
said
about Dana Perino.
Perino. I'm a little tired, so I can't get my brain's not functioning properly. But yeah, so even she said, that she would have conversations with George W. Bush, and it's pretty much on autopilot. Like you don't really, it doesn't. It's like it doesn't matter who you put in there because the system it runs itself. That is a problem for you
Exactly.
and me. Yeah, that is a
Yeah.
problem for us. We are not being represented by it doesn't matter who you want to represent you because the system runs itself. It doesn't matter. That's a problem.
Well, I will say this, and I bring this up all the time, and I know a lot of my MAGA folks that listen do not necessarily like me saying this because it's history based, but before we had big government running everything and having this automated system, life in this country was terrible for me. So I'm afraid to go back to some of this stuff where I know a lot of right wingers want, states' rights, want less government, want us the people to get back to running the country as opposed to the government. I'm a little hesitant on that because when that used to happen, things were really scary for me. And for me to just pretend like there's no way that could ever happen again, I'm hesitant. That's all I'll say. But go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, well, we have the 14th Amendment now, but the thing is, I don't think it would the way that what our federal government is doing now with and if like I said, you're not up to speed on the World Economic Forum and the Great Reset and all that stuff, but these gas prices are intentional. The inflation is intentional. That could be solved fairly easily. These are things that could be addressed. And I don't believe that these food processing plants, now that it's up to like 24 of them that have burnt down, I don't think that's an accident. I don't think that the shortage of baby formula is an accident. I think they're making us suffer. The stuff that we're going through right now in this economy is because the federal government is too big. So I think it can,
Well, I get your spiel on the suffering, the economic suffering. I understand that. I'm just simply saying the stuff that I'm worried about would supersede that in a heartbeat. I don't want to pay $7 a gallon. Yeah, I don't want to pay $7 a gallon for gas, but the stuff I'm talking about is way worse than that. So
but
I don't want
yeah,
to because you mentioned we have the 14th Amendment and all that. If they're talking about repealing the second, we know with stop and frisk, they've already, for the most part, violated the hell out of the fourth. They can
right,
overturn the 14th Amendment as well. So
right.
I don't want to go back to that.
But I'm just saying that I don't think that by having the growth in the federal government that you would avoid. You know what? I understand you as an African American would have that fear. My fear is for the both of us because I feel like I don't think how dark you are, how light you are is going to make a difference to anybody if this federal government is too powerful. We're all going to be breaking rocks. you know.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I don't know where to go with it, but I will just say, yeah, if the country falls to shit, I still think you would be in a better position than me. That's
I don't
all
know,
I'm
man.
saying.
I don't know, man. There's a lot of people blaming white men, especially cis, as they say. Us heterosexual white males, man. There's somebody we got a target on our back. You know what I mean? So I'm not sure about that.
Well,
one
hey,
yeah. But I mean, that's neither here nor there. I mean, that's not. You know what I mean? That's all conjecture. But I'm saying I understand where you're concerned, where they're coming from. But I'm saying there's no guarantee that it wouldn't happen but by having a federal government that's too big and too powerful. I don't think that's any kind of guarantee either.
Yeah,
So
and see that, and that's the issue is that we don't want government to be too powerful, but at the same time, we don't want them to be too relaxed either. So
right,
I don't know where to go with that one. I mean, because when Trump
yeah.
got in office, here's another thing Trump talked about that sounded great, but it had no chance of happening. He stated that when he got elected, for every government office I open, I'm going to shut two. None of that ever happened.
Well, I think
None of
that
that
was
ever took place.
regulations. No, I think that was regulations, and he did do a lot to eliminate duplicative regulations. He did reduce the regulatory state. That's one thing that he did do. But one thing about these hearings, though, that I wanted to mention, because I know you're going to want to move on here real quick, but I don't know if you have any awareness, if you got eyes on this, but okay. So in Michigan, they had the whole Gretchen Whitmer was going to be kidnapped, and they had to break into the
Yeah,
Capitol building there,
yeah,
right? So
yeah,
that was a prelude to what happened on 1/6, right? That was because look at who was behind that was Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers were the
yeah.
two groups that were involved in that, right? Also with 1/6. Okay, so those Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers, you know how that got thrown out of court, the Michigan situation. You know that got thrown out, right?
Yeah, I did hear that
Because
the
the
federal government was like entrapping him to some degree.
yes, and do you know who the head of the FBI in that district after that happened? You know where he moved to? Where they moved him
No,
to?
where?
D.C. D.C. So the
Okay.
so the guy that structured that situation up there in Michigan, I don't think it's a coincidence that there was the same guy that was in D.C. So you know,
I guess the question I would have to ask is if what you're saying is true, let's say he is corrupt as hell. Why did he have it in for the Proud Boys so bad?
I don't know that he's got it in for the problem. I mean, just because the FBI has, this, they have always infiltrated groups. How did Malcolm X get killed? Right? They infiltrated and they found people to kill him. Right?
Yeah.
Or after
Okay.
or after or after 9/11. Right? They
Right.
insinuated themselves into Arab mosques and shit, and then
Yeah.
set them up. It's like it's what they do. you
All
know
right.
so
Yeah.
so i'm
I
so
you
i'm
know
just saying
something though, when I hear this kind of stuff, like what you're talking about in our government and folks talking about what would happen if you get rid of firearms and neighbor will rise against neighbor and stuff like that. I hear all of this government turning tyrannical. And the first question I have to ask is if all of this is true, why the hell do we keep saying that we live on the best country on earth? It does not make any sense. The place
you
sounds
know
horrible.
right. I'll tell you what, and I know you've traveled outside the United States, I've lived a lot in Asia. I lived about 10 years in Asia. The thing about America, it's really about people. It's about Americans are great people. We're loud. Like,
But,
you can
but
always find
The Americans are the ones shooting everybody up. That's not the government doing that. That's the
Well,
people.
no. You know what though? There's a lot of misinformation too, because when you look at, for example, you say, "Oh, we have more mass shootings than other countries," and they'll say we have more mass shootings than France. Well, we have a lot more people than France. If you look at the entire of
Per
Western
capita.
Europe,
Per capita.
I don't believe it's per capita. I don't think they're saying that. I want to drill down on those details, because if you look at Western Europe, they have roughly 350 million people. They have a similar population. They also have a lot of they have I believe they have a similar number of mass shooting events like we have. I don't think we're that much different, really.
Yeah, see, I think we're a lot different. But I will say when it comes to incarceration,
Oh, we're
when it comes
crazy
to
with our
homeless,
incarceration.
our
Yeah, we
incarceration is horrible. Our our
yeah, sir.
our number of citizens that
You,
have
you
health care is worse than theirs because they got universal health care. Our
right.
homeless rate is worse than theirs. I mean,
Well, we've
like I
got
said,
some.
I love the country, but the notion that we're the best country on earth, when you factor this stuff in, it makes that look questionable.
Yeah, we got some crazy, stupid ideas. I mean, the one thing, when you have a for profit prison, they can only profit by filling the beds. You know what I mean? I've worked in
Right.
hospital situations before, and they need people in the beds, right? So it's the same thing. If you have a prison that's for profit, you know they're going to find a way to get people in there. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah.
Like there's no, that's
And
crazy.
that alone, a country that has a for-profit prison system, meaning
Yeah,
that
that's
people are
bananas.
incarcerated to make a profit off of them, to me would disqualify a country from being the best.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. I mean,
Yeah.
there's a lot of things we got to do. But like I said, is for me, when you run into Americans or when you deal with other people from other cultures, things of that nature, I love American people. I mean, and you can always find Americans because you go into a place and you can always hear us because we're a lot louder than other people. But we're loud and we're friendly. You know what I mean? You can always find the Americans. Like, oh, I hear an American. There he is. But they're always friendly and they're cool to be around and
Well,
stuff like
but
that. So.
even with us being friendly, a lot of countries do not favor us sometimes because we are boastful. We brag, like for
Right.
instance, freedom. You hear Americans talk about freedom like we have a patent on it. And I've had other folks in other countries. Why do you guys think you're so free? We're free here too. We have almost God bless America like no other country matters. God bless America and nobody else. I think some cartoon used to say, but we are very boastful, and that
Right.
turns a lot of countries off.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely true. One thing that we have over a lot of other countries though is we have a lot of land. Like if you talk to people from
Yeah,
the UK and Ireland and stuff like that, and they got to live in a little tiny one bedroom spot, you know what I mean? They got their whole families in there and stuff. Where we can buy more property, have more room to stretch out,
yeah,
have an actual lawn and things like that that other people don't. They don't live that lifestyle. We have our
true.
cars, and
Yeah,
motorcycles and toys and shit that we have that people don't. People don't have that in
fair.
other countries.
Yeah, and I think that is what makes us. If you look at one metric, and I think that's what because we're a capitalist country. The metric we lead the world in is having shit, wealth.
Yeah, we got a lot of
But
shit.
when you look at morality or success of children in schools, family life, and all, we don't come nowhere near the top. But if you base it
Right.
on I got more shit than you, we are number one. I
We're
gotta
number
move
one.
on,
Yeah,
man.
that's that. Yeah. All right, bro. All
Yeah.
right, man. It's great
All
talking to
right.
you as usual.
Absolutely. Catch you later.
Yeah, man.
And that's the metric that makes America the best country on earth. If you base all of your stake in how much shit I got, keeping up with the Joneses, I think someone says or whatever. But yeah, we have more shit than the average person, and a lot of folks judge you based on how much shit you have. He drives a better car than me, so he must be here. I guess here's the way I would look at it. You could have been in multiple divorces. You could have 10 felonies on your record. You could be dying of cancer. But if you got a ton of money in the bank, folks will say you are successful. That's how we judge people in this country. Just simply having money means he's a successful businessman. He's successful. His life could be fucked up. Hey, but he's successful because we base it all on money. All right, I'm gonna take one more, and that would be real burn target. I'm gonna have to move. I have to terminate it soon. I gotta catch some sleep. But what is that? Real Turnbow? Is that what that says?
Yes, sir. Real Turnbow. Hey, how are you doing today?
I'm doing very good. What's on your mind this evening? Did you
Good.
see the
Yeah.
coverage?
Oh, yeah. So much on my mind. I actually
Talk
did.
to me.
Um, I wasn't going to watch, honestly, but I did decide to turn over because. So, but quick background on me: 20 years of public relations and marketing. So, I understand spinning, and I understand positioning, and I understand that. When you have a primary coming up and it's not looking good, or if you have a bad situation that's happening and it's hard to control, you create other narratives, you distract, in
Okay.
order, so that's I look at things through a little bit of a different lens, but I think
All
most
right.
people I think most people kind of get that. So looking at it through that lens, I really think the Democrats really goofed this one big tonight, and I think here's the reason why. Um, Everyone's already been suspicious of this note that uh, they're being controlled, innovations and
Okay. You're breaking up. You
views,
said
and
wait,
we're
wait, you're
getting.
breaking up. Hang on a second. You said everybody's been
I'm
suspicious of
sorry.
what you were breaking up.
Everybody, I think everybody, even on both parties, are now suspicious of their party. We've become suspicious of our own government, so we understand that they hide things and that they gloss things over and they show us half truths. So I think tonight what actually happened was so over the top in that respect that it's going to actually benefit the Republican Party.
Give me something that was
I'll
over
give
the
you,
top. Give me something that was over the top tonight.
well, just like for me, for example, like I'm a supporter of Trump's policies. I can respect him as a business person and some of the his marketing skills and things like that. But I'm not like a Trump guy. You know, like he definitely had his faults. So I was paying attention because I was kind of thinking, well, maybe they do have a bombshell. You know, maybe they've got something big here. And as they started rolling things out, I was like, are you kidding me? Like,
But
this
give me
is,
an example. Give me an example of something you saw that was
yeah.
over the top.
Well, no, I mean, I was looking for something that would be over the top, but I think what they presented was showing that they went over the top to show a narrative, a specific narrative, and to gloss something over is what I guess is try
Well,
to clarify my point.
let me make it clear. If you got half of the nation that believes you're lying about what took place on January 6th, you're going to have to go above and beyond to convince these people. So you can't. It's not going to be presented as a normal case because there are some skeptics that are so strong. You're going to have to give them overwhelming amounts of evidence because guilty beyond a reasonable doubt is not going to be enough for them. So
Yeah, I think
it
that's
makes
my
sense that it would be over the top. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think that's my point. Is I was expecting them to give us guilty beyond a reasonable doubt, and I think they missed that mark by a long shot. And here's a couple of examples. First of all, Liz Cheney said in her kind of hour monologue, she said nothing to defend the president. First of all, and she's a Republican, so she gave no evidence that would counter anything that was being claimed tonight. So that in itself shows a little bit of bias, because if you're kind of a jury and you're investigating a situation, you should be able to show, hey, here's this side of the coin and here's the other side of the coin. But it was very, very much directed at trying to achieve a specific goal. And when she did that, when she made a couple of really big missteps that's going to come back to haunt her in the next week. One, she said this was not a spontaneous event. And when she said that phrase, that alone vindicates Trump a little bit, because everybody was saying that his rally that day is what caused the insurrection. So if she
Well,
says,
what about the notion that he said he invited everybody out and said it's going to be wild? What is
yeah, yeah, yeah,
a regular? What
yes,
does that mean? It's going to be wild.
yeah. So I'm going to get to that real quick. So that killed their ability now to say that his speech on that day was the speech that caused the insurrection. That's going to be the Republican pushback. Now, getting to your point, she read the tweet, or yeah, he's saying that. So during that tweet, he's talking about he's going to host an event and it's going to be wild. Well, everyone knows that every Trump rally is wild. I mean, people go out there at 3 o'clock in the morning and he fills stadiums, and it is wild. If you've never, I mean, I've never been to one, but I have friends that have been there, and like the energy's crazy. So I don't think you can pin, and that's my point. If that's the tweet that you're going to use to go back and say when all of this started, that's a really, really small, tiny bit of evidence. It's not substantial at all. And then she loses a ton of credibility when she pulls up a tweet of Trump on the day of the insurrection. So, first rule is when you quote someone and you show the quote, you read the entire quote. Or you're going to have problems. So when she read his quote, she read it all the way through, and then she completely skipped the last line. The last line, he says, "Go home."
Okay.
And
So let me
okay,
ask. So in other
so
words,
if you're going to do an ABC production, you're going to hire a producer, you're going to go through months and months of investigations, and you're going to get all of this evidence. In my opinion, they failed to produce anything that was earth shattering or anything that was like, oh my
well,
gosh, he
okay. So let me ask you this question: Do you okay? Trump said it was a love fest. the evidence they presented, do you still believe it was a love fest there that day?
No, no, I don't.
Okay. Okay, so they did produce something that made you disagree with Trump.
Oh, there's a
Do
lot of
you
a lot
believe
of
it?
things. There's a lot of things he
Go
could
ahead.
have done better, for sure.
Okay.
But to say that this man,
Do you believe it was a violent protest or a tour of the Capitol building?
I think it was a violent protest. Absolutely.
Okay. All right. All right. I mean, so, well, you just don't believe Trump did it, but you definitely believe that what happened there that day was wrong, is what I'm hearing. Now,
Yeah,
let me ask you this. When Giuliani got up there, we're not talking Trump, but when Giuliani got up there before Trump and said, let's have trial by combat, what do you think that meant?
I don't know because I'm not a big fan of Giuliani, so I don't remember that speech and I don't remember it in context. Um, but yeah, he said a lot of goofy things for sure.
Okay. The reason I'm asking you that is because for that day, Trump was the headliner, but all of these people spoke before him, and they're giving these inflammatory statements. Then Trump gets up there and says something peaceful and said, "Let's march to the Capitol building. I'll be there with you." He was not there with them, and obviously, if you just want to look at let's have trial by combat and Steve Bannon's speech and things like that, there's no denying that the crowd was hyped up. I mean, they had a gallows and they were chanting about hanging Mike Pence and stuff like that. So there's no denying he sent a pretty angry crowd to the Capitol building.
Yeah, well, here's the thing, though. And don't get me wrong, I'm not in support of what they did whatsoever. But you do have to put this into some context. In that year, we had a record year of riots for all reasons. The temperature was high. You got
Okay.
COVID. I mean, look at what that did to all of us, to depression, to anxiety, to everything.
Well,
So you have
you're not insinuating what happened on January 6th was because of COVID, though, are you?
No, 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 no. But I'm saying you
Oh,
have to take everything into context. So when the election happened, the day of the election, I think everybody has to admit that was a pretty I don't want to say unique, but it was definitely a rare election process. The entire evening, the night, the 2 o'clock in the morning, the 7 o'clock in the morning, the days following, we have to do a recount. They changed the voting procedures due to COVID. So it was a very crazy election process, unlike any other in history. So there
well,
were
and
definitely,
see, I agree that the pandemic made the voting because a lot of states changed their rules and things like that because of the pandemic. But the problem I have is Trump is on television, and Chris Christie brought this up. Governor Chris Christie brought this up. Is that Trump was on television the night of the election, stating he won by a landslide while the votes were still being counted. How could you? And then obviously his supporters started agreeing with him. How could you
well,
know that?
there was evidence that he was winning by a landslide. There
No, he
actually
said I
was.
won. No, he passed tense. He said he had won by a landslide.
What do you mean? The night of?
How can you say you've already won an election where the votes are still being counted? He's on TV saying that while you can see the ticker below him showing the tallies are still coming in from the states. And I believe Pennsylvania was around 40% at that point. Only
I thought
40% of their votes came in. And he's on TV saying he's already won by a landslide.
so. I thought no. I thought Trump was leading the night of, and I think that's the big
Yeah,
issue is
lead,
we all woke up.
right.
Uh, we all
Leading the election is a current statement. You are in the lead. Won by a landslide means it's already been decided in its past tense. That was not true.
Yeah. I mean, we all know that. I mean, that's Trump's style, though. That's kind of
But
his
that,
normal.
but that is you can't just have that style when people have everything staked on an election. You can't just throw some. That's like yelling fire in a crowded theater. You can't just have that style. This is not
Well,
over with yet. You
uh,
can't just go.
but
And let me just, I'll let you finish, but let me add this as well. He also told Dr. Oz to do that while their election was still being counted. He told Dr. Oz to step up and just claim that he had won. That style needs to stop. But go ahead.
yeah, I mean, Hillary has used that style, you know,
And what do you think of
as
Hillary?
well.
And what do you think of Hillary?
Well, and I was actually going to comment real quick on that about the lock her up. I mean, that actually is still that's Trump is still involved in the Hillary situation. Like he has a civil suit pending against her, and her attorney just admitted that she did give the go ahead to send the false narrative to the FBI. So that is enough, maybe not to
It's going
criminal.
nowhere. I get it. It's going nowhere though. I mean, if, I
It
would
may
just
not
tell
go
you this.
criminally, but it can civilly because in
It's
civil law
going.
you
It.
only
I would tell you,
you
Hillary Clinton is almost 80 years old. Good luck with that. That's what I was just
yeah
tell you. Maybe I would just say don't hold your breath on that. Hillary Clinton's almost
yeah
80 years old. That's going nowhere. She can delay that until she dies. Good luck
Yeah,
with that.
you are right about that. But last night, I just wanted to point out that you won't hear anyone talking about today. You know, when Biden went on the comedy show or whatever, Jack Kimmel or whatever, so he's talking, and I thought he actually did a pretty decent job, better than he's ever done, I think. But he made a statement on there. He says, you know, things are going to go crazy, and I'm not direct quoting, but I'm getting pretty close. Things are going to go pretty crazy if they overturn Roe versus Wade. He said there's going to be a mini civil war. Okay, so let's say that they do overturn Roe versus Wade and somebody gets killed. Are we going to go back now and say, oh, Biden, he's responsible for this?
Well, it's a big difference between saying there's going to be, and I'm not a fan of him saying stuff like that, but it's a difference between saying there's going to be a mini civil war as opposed to calling everybody to a meeting, having several key speakers give these really violent speeches like trial by combat, and then it happening. What you're talking about is Biden saying that they overturn Roe versus Wade, there's going to be a mini civil war, and then they do it 6 months later and something happens. What Trump did was what happened with January 6th was far more orchestrated, where all of these groups are coming into place on the same day. They got several keynote speakers that are giving these really inflamed speeches to people who have a noose erected in front of them. And then you tell all those people, let's go to the Capitol building where all of the people you are mad at happen to be located. And you don't expect nothing to happen from that.
Hmm.
I'm going to hype you up. It's like me telling you that. You ever seen the TV show Cheaters?
Yes.
You see how I'm going to
Yeah,
give
it's
you all of
hilarious.
this bad. I'm going to give you all of this bad evidence about somebody, and then at the end of you know where they happen to
Right.
be right down the street. You want to go talk to them? It's pretty clear something bad is going to happen when you do that.
Yeah, but I think, but here's the problem with what with the performance tonight is that people are going to keep learning information as we go along, and they're going to see that that was a show because, like for example, what they didn't say anything at all that could make Trump that could give his version of the story. They didn't even give any of his testimony, but what they really left out that's very significant is about 2 weeks before 1/6, Trump did authorize 20,000 armed National Guards to go to the Capitol because they had some intel. It wasn't strong, but they had enough. And he said, hey, if that's what you feel like you need to do to protect, then do it. So he did authorize that. Nancy Pelosi denied it, and the mayor of DC, they denied it. Then, not just Trump, but then
Okay.
a week and a half later, they gathered more evidence that showed that something violent was about to happen. And the Capitol Police,
Did I lose you?
Nancy Pelosi, for help. For he asked people for help. And she
You're
him
breaking up.
only five policers trying to protect. Sorry about it.
Yeah, you're breaking
I
up.
don't know what you missed.
Okay, I guess the
So
question
the
I'm
chief,
asking is, I guess the question in regards to what happened on January 6th is, based on the speeches that preceded Trump, in the way the crowd was behaving right before the folks are speaking, when you send that crowd to the Capitol building, is it not out of character to be able to tell something bad may happen? We're sending these people after giving them a 90-minute speech of how horrible Congress and how horrible the Senate is, and now we're going to send them to the building where Congress and Senate happens to be in session. And how can we not
yeah,
suggest that it's pretty predictable something bad may happen there?
Right. But see, I can get people worked up and I can get people to show up, but I can't be found guilty if they
Okay.
do
All right.
something like,
All right.
commit a crime. So
Fair enough.
people were
So
hot. He
you
was
are
hot.
fair enough. Okay, so, but you are in the camp that he did get people worked up.
Oh, he kept people
Okay.
worked
All
up.
right.
That was his
I can live
that's
with
his
that. I
speech
don't know.
style.
Yeah, I can live with that. I don't know if that's a crime or at the end of the day or not. But yeah, you would definitely be at least in a roundabout way admitting that whether it's criminal or not is a different argument. But you're admitting that he got people worked up and then sent them to the area where the people they were worked up against was located. You're just saying he has
I
no
think he's
responsibility in what they did to those people, but you're making it clear, yeah, you hyped them up.
I think he sent them to riot and send a very strong message. Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, I mean, and I would be willing to entertain the way you just described it. I will just say that based on your own description, at the very least, he's an agitator of what happened. You want to say that for folks who are suggesting that Antifa or Black Lives Matter was in the crowd agitating people, the way you're describing it, whether it's criminal or not, yeah, Trump is an agitator. He agitated what took place on January 6th, based on your description.
I wouldn't say that he agitated what took place. I'm saying that he's an emotional speaker. He understands how to hype up a crowd. And I believe he hyped up the crowd to go do a significant, bold protest. But I don't think that he ever intended anyone to storm inside the
Well,
building and start
if,
shooting.
if you're hyping up a crowd to the point where they're talking about taking the life of the vice president, how much more hyping up do you need to do?
I don't think he ever suggested taking his life.
No, no, I'm saying no. If your words are getting people so angry that they're now chanting that they want to take the life of the vice president, and then you send them to the building where the vice president is located, how can you not see that the potential for danger there?
Well, the chants weren't about killing the vice president. The chants were about him sending the election back to the states where they thought fraud was.
What was the gallows that was erected in front of them? Who was that for?
I don't know, but I also think that was set up at the Capitol, not at the Trump rally.
Exactly. No, it was set up in when they're giving the speech there. That stuff is in front of them. They got video showing these folks chanting out some pretty nefarious stuff right there in front while they're holding the speech. And then later on in that speech, he tells the people go to the Capitol building. I
Yeah,
mean, you're hyping these people up to be very angry at folks, and then sending them to the location where the folks are. Whether you want to say it's criminal or not, I'm fine if you want to say that's not a crime. I don't know the
I
statutes.
I
I'm just
would
simply saying that it's predictable that something bad might happen when if I tell you a whole bunch of negative stuff about somebody and then tell you, by the way, old boy is in the pool hall down the street. Do you want to go see him? When you go in there to see him, I would assume you're probably going to address him with it. It's not going to go well.
I wish he would have, when he told them to go and be bold and be strong and fight for your country, I wish he would have, also said, because at times he did say, you have to do things legally, but you still have to fight. I wish he would have used some of those words as well that day.
Yeah.
I definitely do. But I mean, look at where we're at with everyone. Like, look at just what happened with Kavanaugh, and no one's even talking about that today.
It's
No
it's
one,
it's
no,
been talked about on the
I mean,
right wing
nobody's
media
denouncing
networks.
it. Nobody's
Yeah.
heavily denouncing it. Like Biden's not coming out and saying, "Listen, guys, this is an important legislation, but we can't go here. We cannot do this."
No, and I think he should, but believe it or not, when they talked about taking the life of Mike Pence, Trump didn't call him for several days, and there are people in the audience saying, "Big deal." I mean, just like you're saying, they should have denounced what happened to Brett Kavanaugh, and Biden should call and check on him. He hasn't done that. But folks are in the audience actually defending Trump, not calling Mike Pence or saying anything. 3, 4, 5 days later, did not even address the man after the Secret Service had to rush them out. So
Yeah,
I get your point.
yeah. I mean, I think they were definitely at ends with each other. After he didn't do that.
Yeah. And Fast Pass is in the comments saying in regards to Trump. He said go peacefully to the Capitol building. He absolutely said that. But keep in mind, after telling the crowd, let's have trial by combat, they're erecting nooses and they're yelling all these hateful slogans. Telling them to go do something peacefully is kind of a joke. I mean, you see the video of those folks running to the cat. Those folks were pissed off. I mean, that would be
But
just like when Derek. That would be just like when Derek Chauvin killed George Floyd, and the city of Minneapolis had waited like 4 days to even arrest the guy. That would be like having George Floyd's mom on TV saying, "Well, go protest peacefully." After
but
hyping up a crowd to that level, the peaceful stuff is not going to happen. And Trump would be smart enough to know that.
but that's kind of oxymoron to say, that he hyped him up and he should have said something, but then you say, but he did say go peacefully. I mean, what else do you want him to do?
Not have that speech in the first place. The go peacefully part is the cover your ass ploy at the end of it. That's all. Like I said, that's no
No, I
different
mean
than.
I'm talking about Trump's speech because he's the one that's essentially on trial, not
And
Giuliani.
that's what I'm saying is that
What else?
Trump ending that speech by saying "go peacefully" is a cover your ass statement. You see the people leaving, you can see how angry they are, and you're thinking to yourself, "Oh, they about to go fuck some shit up." Hey, go peacefully because you know that it's gonna come back on you. That's what I'm saying.
Well, I mean, then you can't. I mean, I'm just saying that the Tonight Show, I don't think ties Trump to being guilty of a barrier. That's what I'm saying.
Okay, yeah, and I'm not a lawyer, so I don't know if he broke any laws or not. I cannot speak at it from that aspect. So if he's not criminally culpable in it, that is what it is. But I believe in terms of like, say, for instance, there was a civil lawsuit or something like that. Let's say a regular citizen that had a huge following went to a park or went to a city hall and did exactly what Trump did. I don't know if he would be criminal either, but he would definitely be civilly. He would lose civil cases. If somebody got killed, like Ashley Babbitt, for instance, who bought Trump's statements hook, line, and sinker, and now she's gone. Yeah, I think that he would be, if he was a, now he's president, so that's a different story. And I don't believe presidents tend to be held accountable, whether it's Biden, Hunter Biden, Hillary Clinton. You're not going to get those people. But if he was a regular citizen and he had done something like that and it led to what took place, if he was not charged criminally, he would lose a civil case big time because you hyped all these people up and you sent them in the direction of the people they were angry at. And a mess happened. A mess happened. Well, I told him to go peacefully. Everything you talked about was not peaceful. The only peaceful thing you said was go peacefully. I'm going to say all this angry stuff to you, and I'm going to conclude it with, oh, but by the way, go peacefully. It is what it is. And I mean, I
But
don't know. Like
wouldn't
I
you
said, I don't
agree?
know if it's going to
But
go ahead.
wouldn't you agree that both parties really are really over the line on rhetoric though with that kind of language? I mean,
Absolutely.
the
Yeah,
black
absolutely.
senator that said get up in their faces, go to the where they're eating lunch and get up in their faces,
Yeah,
and she yelled it. I mean, getting up in someone's face is actually a crime. I mean, you can
100%.
you can
I, I,
threaten
I
someone by
totally,
getting up in their face.
I totally agree with that.
So
And I'm
they
not a
all have to tone
Maxine.
down.
Yeah, you're talking about Maxine Waters, and I totally agree with that. And
Yes, sir.
I'm not, I'm not defending Maxine Waters by any means, but for me, what Trump said is particularly egregious because it would be akin to Maxine Waters holding a speech and then telling the folks, okay, here comes those people. You need to get in their faces. And then saying, well, here they are in the restaurant. So there is not even a time gap. These events literally happen like right behind each other. It's not like Trump got up there and gave this horrible speech, and then the protest took place a week or two later. Like what you were talking about, Biden saying if Roe versus Wade is reversed, there's going to be a civil war. No, what Trump did all of the chain of events, this stuff happened in a matter of minutes, if not hours. It happened right behind each other. So it's so close together that there's not even a gap in between it.
Yeah, but I think you're punishing people based on whether or not and how long and how far apart the actions take place. But you have to punish them all equally based on the tone and the rhetoric that they're using, and we need to call them out And whether or not, something happened an hour later or a day later, if it was in relation to what they are encouraging, then they should be held accountable. And there were people who they got up in their face on the streets after she gave that speech,
Well,
and they
it's
pushed.
a crime, and I, like I said, I'm not defending Maxine Waters for saying that. If she says something crazy like that, and a group of people do it, they get charged for it, and even in court, they're blaming Maxine Waters. Hell, she told us to do it. Yeah, I think that should reflect on her because that's what's happening in January 6th. Those folks who were charged, they're actually saying we did this because the president told us to come here. I mean,
Yeah,
his own supporters are blaming him for it. So yeah, if you want to say Maxine Waters in that case, I'm not defending Maxine Waters. I'm just
and I'm
saying the notion that Trump did not do anything wrong, I have a question with.
No, and I don't know what the solution is. I think if maybe both parties would come together and publicly censure each time this happens, or if we could have some sort of which is almost impossible to find, a bipartisan group
Yeah.
that would just call them out publicly each time these things happen. It might deter that kind of speech. That's what we do on a local level. I know it's happened. But hey, man, I really appreciate you. It's been good talking to you, and the audience here has been really good. So that's awesome. If we can all discuss it civilly, hey, they
It's
should
a
be able
love
to,
fest.
right?
It's a well. I make it clear. I mean, you're obviously leaning right, and my predominant audience is MAGA. This is a MAGA friendly zone, so I let MAGA speak here. The fact that I'm a liberal means nothing. I do not censor. The only time you're going to get your speech interfered with here is if the powers that be above me have something to say. But you're welcome back anytime, man. Real good conversation.
Thank you, sir. Good night.
All right, you have a good night. All right. Okay.
Folks, so it is what it is. I mean, I think that gentleman, me and his conversation kind of sums it up is that despite what they released tonight, and as you can see, this video is titled 2000 Mules, the liberal version. And I think the conversation that me and that gentleman had really drives that home. 2000 Mules, the actual documentary by Dinesh D'Souza, was supposed to be the greatest thing since sliced bread to prove election fraud. What they did tonight on this live stream in regards to the January 6th events, that live stream was supposed to be the greatest thing since sliced bread. Both of them failed. 2000 Mules, it didn't change any hearts and minds. If you favored 2000 Mules, the documentary, you probably already thought the election was stolen before it started. It really did not change any hearts and minds, and neither will this live stream, this live program tonight that came on ABC and all of these networks. If you believe that Donald Trump is innocent of what took place there, well, most of them didn't even watch it. So, of course, it's not going to make any difference. Most of the folks who believe that Trump had no play in what took place on January 6th, they're not going to watch any of the investigation, and they're not going to trust anything that comes from it anyway. So, you're not going to change any hearts and minds because their minds are made up. So, it is what it is, but I do appreciate talking to you folks. I got to wrap this up. Got to get up early in the morning just like the rest of you folks. It has been a pleasure, as usual, speaking with you. 7 p.m. Central. I'll catch you guys tomorrow. Take care.